Welcome back to Ronin Recap. Hope you enjoy this new video. Comment down below if you have any suggestions. Enjoy!
All this while, the painting would only react when Xia Ruofei touched the raw gemstones or jadeite. Now, the painting started to shake on its own. What did this mean? Xia Ruofei could only think of one possibility, and that was that there was something that the painting scroll urgently wanted in the pile of raw stones. It was very likely that this was a high-quality jade that could promote its evolution. Xia Ruofei's thoughts started to run wild, but his face remained expressionless. He walked over and squatted down casually, picking up the raw gemstones with ease. Boss Chen happened to look over and said with a smile, "Brother Xia, that pile of raw stones was prepared to be sent next door as a gift. There's nothing to see. If there aren't any that you'd like, there's still a lot of them here. You can come over and pick." In fact, he was just giving them a kind reminder. After all, this pile of raw gemstones was of very poor quality and had been picked by many customers before. It was impossible for anyone to want them in the shop, so he was going to take them as gifts. Xia Ruofei smiled and turned around. "Boss Chen, I buy raw stones more because I like them. Besides, isn't the raw stone that rose in price the last time a free gift from the neighbor?" Boss Chen was stunned for a moment, then he laughed and said, "That makes sense. Brother Xia, you can pick whatever you like. I'll give you whatever you like." Xia Ruofei grinned and said, "Sure. Then I'll thank you first." After that, Xia Ruofei really squatted down and continued to pick the raw stones. Boss Chen only smiled and shook his head. He then started chatting with the familiar customers beside him. It was obvious that he did not care about the pile of raw stones at all. Xia Ruofei reached out to search. Throughout the entire process, the spirit map was shaking slightly. Xia Ruofei could even feel a trace of longing from the spirit map. When Xia Ruofei's hand touched a raw stone, the spirit painting scroll suddenly shook more violently. The intensity of the vibration was no less than the raw stone that was priced at more than 2 million. Xia Ruofei knew that it was definitely this stone. He looked at the black raw stone quietly and remembered its shape in his heart. Then, he continued to search. However, the spirit painting did not shake as violently as before. Xia Ruofei was sure that it was the black raw stone from earlier. However, he did not pick it up immediately. Instead, he stood up and walked to the other shelf. "Brother Xia," Boss Chen laughed, "there's nothing in that pile that you like, right?" Xia Ruofei chuckled. "I'll go over here and pick first. I'll come back later to get a piece no matter what. It's a free gift from Boss Chen anyway." Boss Chen laughed and said, "No problem. You can pick a few more later." Xia Ruofei nodded with a smile and walked to another shelf. If he could not find a suitable raw stone here, Xia Ruofei could only buy one randomly and, conveniently, take the black gift. Xia Ruofei walked between the shelves with a relaxed expression. He looked like he was casually looking at the goods, but in fact, he did not miss a single raw stone. The situation on this shelf was similar to the previous one. There were not many raw stones that could cause the spirit map scroll to shake, and there was no violent reaction at all. Just as Xia Ruofei thought that he had to settle for the second best option, his hand brushed past a raw stone. The spirit painting scroll suddenly vibrated. Judging from the vibration, the jade contained in the raw stone should be worth at least 2 million yuan. Xia Ruofei raised his eyebrows and looked at the price tag next to the raw stone, 250,000 yuan. The price was also appropriate, so it was this. Xia Ruofei was excited. However, Xia Ruofei was still very calm. He did not take the raw stone immediately. Instead, he continued to choose raw stones as if nothing had happened. In the end, he randomly picked 2 raw stones that definitely did not have jade. Then, he took them to the counter for payment with this one that was priced at 250,000 yuan. "Little brother, you've chosen?" Boss Chen asked with a smile. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "Yes. I don't know anything about it, so I'll just buy a few pieces based on my feelings. It feels good." Boss Chen laughed and said, "Brother, didn't you also make a big profit last time based on your feelings? This time, it'll definitely rise greatly." "Haha, then I'll be counting on your blessings," Xia Ruofei said. At this time, the shop assistant had finished calculating. Including the 2 raw stones that Xia Ruofei had randomly picked up, it was a total of 400,000. Xia Ruofei paid with his card and said, Boss Chen, I'll have to trouble your master to help me cut the stone. Boss Chen nodded and turned around. Old Shu, you go and help Brother Xia cut the stone. Yes, boss. The master of cutting stones, Old Shu, said quickly. Brother, Old Shu is the most experienced stonecutter in our shop. Boss Chen smiled at Xia Ruofei and said, tell him how you want to solve it. Xia Ruofei laughed and said, I'm just an amateur who knows nothing. How would I know how to solve it? Master Shu, you can solve it based on your experience. If it really increases, I'll give you red packets. Master Shu smiled and said, then I'll thank the boss first. With Xia Ruofei's permission, Master Shu started to cut the stone. The one that cost 250,000 yuan was the most expensive, so he put it aside first and picked one from the other two raw stones. He carefully observed it for a while and then fixed it on the stone cutter. The machine started to make noise, and the few customers in the shop also came over. As long as someone was cutting the stone, they would definitely be there to watch. Master Shu operated the machine, and with a sharp grinding sound, a corner of the raw stone was cut off. Then, Master Shu found some clean water to clean the cut surface. A series of sighs could be heard. There was no green in the kasaya. Master Shu was already used to this. He continued to adjust the angle and opened a new window. There was still no sign of green. After opening 3 windows in a row, Master Shu fixed the raw stone in place and then cut it open at the waist. It was still all gray. It's broken. This raw stone is worth tens of thousands. This young man has made a loss. The spectators began to discuss. On the other hand, Xia Ruofei still had a faint smile on his face as if losing tens of thousands of yuan was not a big deal. Boss Chen observed Xia Ruofei's expression and was even more certain that Xia Ruofei was a rich young master. Next, the process of cutting the second raw stone was similar. Master Shu first cut a few windows, but when there was no green, he cut it directly. Naturally, this piece had also been cut. The onlookers sighed even louder. Some of them even looked at Xia Ruofei sympathetically. In just a short while, hundreds of thousands of yuan had gone down the drain. Of course, there were also some people who were gloating. Xia Ruofei's face was still as calm as an ancient well without any fluctuations in emotion. Master Shu saw that he had cut 2 pieces in a row and couldn't help but look at Xia Ruofei questioningly. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, Master Shu, please continue. There's still one more that hasn't been opened. Master Shu didn't say anything. He nodded and began to carefully observe the 250,000 yuan raw stone. This raw stone weighed more than 30 pounds and was about the size of a wash basin. However, its appearance was not very good, and there was a groove-like crack on the surface. Perhaps for this reason, the price was a little low. The onlookers shook their heads when they saw this raw stone. They felt that it was not as good as the previous 2 raw stones in all aspects, except that it was bigger than the previous 2. Everyone felt that this raw stone would probably be cut into pieces. At this time, Master Shu had almost finished looking. He adjusted the angle of the machine, moved the raw stone up and fixed it in place, and then started the machine to cut along the crack. After a short while, the cracked stone skin was cut off into a very thin piece. The price of this raw stone was relatively high, so Master Shu was relatively cautious. After removing the raw stone from the stone cutter, Master Shu went to find clean water to clean the cut surface. In fact, no one, including Master Shu himself, had much confidence in this stone. However, when the clear water washed over the cut surface, an intoxicating green color appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, the scene suddenly quieted down, and only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. It rose. And it was a huge increase. After a few seconds, the crowd started to stir. Boss Chen, who had been sitting next to them, couldn't help but stand up, his expression very interesting. Master Shu's mouth was also slightly agape. He hurriedly wiped the cut carefully, so that everyone could see it more clearly. There was a hint of green on the palm-sized cut surface, with some white mist mixed in. However, it was obvious that the green was very pure. It should be Yonglu. I wonder how it's like to plant water. It shouldn't be too bad. This raw stone is only 250,000 yuan, it must have increased by a lot. Everyone was in a heated discussion. Boss Chen's expression changed slightly as he said, Brother Xia, are you willing to sell this piece of material? I'll buy it back for 500,000 yuan. A 250,000 yuan raw stone's value had doubled just because a window was opened and a little green was revealed. This was the charm of stone gambling. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "Boss Chen, you know I'm not short of money. Isn't stone gambling just for fun? Let's just open them all first." Xia Ruofei knew very well that the value of the jade in this raw stone was definitely more than 500,000 yuan. Naturally, he would not sell it just like that. Boss Chen was a little disappointed, and the crowd also tried to persuade Xia Ruofei. "Little brother, 500,000 is enough. If we rub the stones again, we'll have nothing left if it collapses." "Yup. If you sell it for 500,000 yuan, you'll be able to make up for all the losses you've suffered earlier, and you'll even make a small profit." "Not bad. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant." Xia Ruofei smiled and ignored the crowd. He motioned for Master Shu to continue. It was already green, so he naturally couldn't cut it again. Master Shu changed the grinding machine and began to rub the stone along the surface. Master Shu was indeed an experienced master. His hands were very stable as he held the grinding wheel and slowly rubbed the surface of the stone. Everyone's eyes were focused on the raw stone. Except for the grinding sound of the grinding wheel and the raw stone, no one on the scene spoke. After more than half an hour, the raw stone was slowly unraveled by Master Shu's hands, gradually revealing its true appearance. It was a whole piece of green jade, about the size of a volleyball. The green color was evenly distributed, and it looked full of vitality under the light. "You look very healthy. It's at least yang green. But the water head is average, and the transparency isn't very high. It should be a dry green species. That's amazing. This little brother was only bought for 250,000 yuan. Yup, he struck it rich this time." Everyone was discussing and their words revealed their envy of Xia Ruofei. This was not the first time Xia Ruofei had seen an undiscovered piece of jade, but he was still attracted by its beauty. If he didn't need funds, he would definitely take it back and let the spirit map scroll absorb it. However, the construction of the farm was very important, so this piece of jade could only be sold. Of course, Xia Ruofei did not say anything because he knew that there would be people who wanted to buy it. Sure enough, after a few seconds of silence, a middle-aged fat man took the lead and said, "Little brother, I'm willing to pay 1.6 million for this piece of jade. Sell it to me." As soon as the fat middle-aged man finished speaking, another old man with a goatee immediately said, "Such a big piece of dried green, and it's only 1.6 million. You're bullying this little brother for not knowing. Okay. I'll pay 1.8 million. 1.9 million, I'm taking it." Another person had joined the competition. Xia Ruofei stood at the side with a smile. He didn't even need to say anything. Everyone would naturally start bidding, and he only needed the highest bidder to win. Very quickly, the price had reached 2.1 million. The highest bidder was the little old man with the goatee. At this moment, Boss Chen, who had not participated in the bidding, suddenly said, "I'll take the 2.1 million. His words stunned everyone. Someone had already bid 2.1 million. Even if he was the owner of Spirit Jade House, that raw stone already belonged to Xia Ruofei. Now that it was being sold as a raw material, there should be a first-come, first-served basis, right? However, Boss Chen only paused for a moment before he continued, 2.1 million, plus the 300,000 yuan of jade in exchange for this piece of dry green material. Brother Xia, how is it? Previously, Xia Ruofei had asked for 300,000 yuan worth of jade, but he had not paid for it. Now, Boss Chen was using these jades as a bargaining chip, which was equivalent to a bid of 2.4 million yuan. 2.4 million. Boss Chen, isn't your price a little outrageous? The old man with the goatee said, "Aren't you afraid of losing money?" Boss Chen smiled and said, "Old Gu, most of the jade materials that Brother Xia wants are broken pieces, but this piece is a whole piece. I estimate that you can take out 28 to 29 bracelets. The rest of the materials can be used to make some small accessories. You should make a small profit." The goateed old man sighed. He knew that he couldn't beat Boss Chen, so he didn't plan to bid anymore. Xia Ruofei also knew when to stop. He smiled and said, "Boss Chen, deal. Ha ha ha. Refreshing. Brother Xia, thank you." Boss Chen patted Xia Ruofei's shoulder and said. The onlookers shook their heads and sighed when they saw that they couldn't get the jade. Some people were envious of Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei had spent a total of 400,000 on the raw stones. He had earned 1.7 million just by reselling them. On top of that, he had also obtained a jade material worth 300,000. He had made a lot of money. Boss Chen was also a straightforward person. He immediately printed out a standard jade trade contract and signed it with Xia Ruofei. Then, he told the shop assistant to transfer the money to Xia Ruofei and kept the volleyball-sized dry green type jade. At this time, the shop assistant who was preparing the jade in the next shop brought over a bag of jade worth 300,000 yuan. Boss Chen personally handed it to Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei checked it and confirmed that there was no problem. The deal was officially closed. Boss Chen, Xia Ruofei asked with a smile, "You said that I can pick 1 or 2 stones from the pile over there. Does that still count?" Boss Chen was stunned for a moment, then laughed out loud. "Brother Xia, you've already earned 2 million yuan. Would you still be interested in those low-grade raw stones?" Xia Ruofei laughed. "Who told you to give it to me for free? Who wouldn't want raw gemstones that don't cost money?" "No problem." Boss Chen laughed. "Who asked me to spread the word? Brother Xia, you can pick whichever you like, or even a few more. Just take it as a thank you gift from me." Hearing this, Xia Ruofei no longer stood on ceremony. He walked over and pretended to rummage through the pile of raw stones. Then, he picked up the raw stone that could make the spirit painting scroll vibrate on its own and said with a smile, "This will do." Boss Chen glanced at the raw stone and smiled. "All right. Brother Xia, do you need me to open this stone on the spot?" Boss Chen didn't care about this unremarkable raw stone at all. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "I'll just take it. Otherwise, how embarrassing would it be if he didn't get anything? I'll go home and cut it myself." Boss Chen couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then he said, "Brother Xia, you're the person with the best luck I've ever seen in stone gambling. I'm going to participate in the Myanmar public jade bid soon. Are you interested in accompanying me? I can pay you according to the highest standard of a stone gambling consultant." Xia Ruofei replied without even thinking, "I appreciate your kindness. Besides, Myanmar is a poor place with no pretty girls, so I'm too lazy to go and join in the fun." Xia Ruofei was cautious by nature. If he didn't need money urgently, he wouldn't have come to gamble again. Xia Ruofei naturally avoided the Myanmar public bid that Boss Chen had mentioned. Mr. Chen could tell that Xia Ruofei knew nothing about stone gambling. He attributed the 2 gains that Xia Ruofei had made to luck. In fact, Boss Chen had been in this business for more than 10 years and had seen similar situations like Xia Ruofei's. Therefore, he did not suspect anything at all. Xia Ruofei's rejection was within his expectations. Why would a rich young master care about such a small reward? After chatting with Boss Chen for a while, Xia Ruofei left Spirit Jade House with the bag of jade. On the way back, Xia Ruofei could not suppress his excitement. This time, he had really returned with a full load. Besides, Xia Ruofei had a feeling that the biggest reward of this trip was not the 2 million yuan in cash or the 300,000 yuan worth of jade. It was highly possible that the unraveled black raw stone was the biggest surprise of his trip. Now that there was no problem with the funds to build the farm, Xia Ruofei called Liang Qichao on the way and told him that they had decided to use manager Li's plan and asked him to help arrange the construction team. Naturally, Liang Qichao didn't agree. He patted his chest and promised that he would hire the best construction team and the best workers to do this project. He also asked manager Li to personally keep an eye on the construction site to ensure the quality of the project. Xia Ruofei said a few polite words and didn't talk much with him as he was still driving. He only said that he would buy him a drink next time to thank him and then hung up. After throwing the phone on the console, Xia Ruofei sped up. He couldn't wait to go home and study that unremarkable raw stone. At the villa in the suburbs, Xia Ruofei carried the jade and the raw stone and hurried upstairs. After locking the door and windows in his bedroom, he couldn't wait to take out the spirit painting and the black raw stone. As for the bag of jade that was worth 300,000 yuan, he threw it aside. With the previous 2 experiences, Xia Ruofei picked up the raw stone and communicated with the spiritual map. Of course, Xia Ruofei was also a little uncertain. After all, the previous spirit paintings had directly absorbed jade. The one in his hand was only a raw stone. It was still unknown whether it could absorb it. However, it was soon proven that his worries were unnecessary. The moment Xia Ruofei's mind connected with the spirit map, he felt a suction force. Then, the dark origin stone in his hand was sucked into the spirit map. It fell directly into the unfurled scroll and disappeared without a trace. Xia Ruofei didn't expect things to go so smoothly. He was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He couldn't wait to enter the spirit map space. In the next moment, Xia Ruofei appeared beside the spatial spirit pond. After the familiar dizziness passed, Xia Ruofei looked around and was stunned. The size of the space was still about 4 acres, and there was no change. He quickly looked at the nameless plant again. The corollas of the strange flower that he had just picked were still bare, and there were no new strange flowers growing. Could it be that the conditions for evolution had not been met after absorbing the raw stone? Xia Ruofei suddenly had this thought. But it didn't seem like it. This was because Xia Ruofei could clearly feel that after the spirit painting absorbed the black rough stone, the spiritual connection between him and the painting had clearly strengthened. As soon as he entered the space, Xia Ruofei could feel that the air in the space was fresher. It was as if the entire space was filled with a faint spiritual qi that nourished everything in the space. Xia Ruofei could feel that in such an environment, even without the change in time flow, the plants and animals would grow much faster than the outside world. All the signs indicated that the spirit map space had evolved. Could it be that the evolution was not complete enough? Xia Ruofei thought to himself. He thought of the bag of jade outside and immediately left the medium. He took out the bag of jade worth 300,000 yuan and the remaining piece of jade from the last evolution. Then, he would let the spirit map space absorb all the jades. This spirit painting scroll also didn't refuse anyone. It was like a bottomless pit. After a while, the jadeite worth more than 300,000 yuan was completely absorbed. Xia Ruofei returned to the medium. Unfortunately, the anticipated scene did not appear. The space was still about 4 mu, and the strange flowers did not regrow. Xia Ruofei walked back and forth in the medium unwillingly. When he left the spirit jade house, Xia Ruofei was full of hope that this dark origin stone would be able to evolve the spirit map space again. After all, this was the first time the spirit map space had vibrated on its own, and Xia Ruofei could feel that its anticipation was stronger than ever before. Xia Ruofei did not expect that after he took out the raw stone and let the scroll absorb it, he would obtain such an incomplete evolution. After absorbing more than 300,000 jade, there was still no change. Xia Ruofei left the spirit map space in frustration. After sitting on the bed in a daze for a while, Xia Ruofei picked up Jiu Piao's painting and looked at it carefully. Then, he tried to connect to the spirit painting with his mind. After a few evolutions, Xia Ruofei's spiritual connection with the spirit map had become closer. Every blade of grass and tree in the spirit map space seemed to be right in front of Xia Ruofei. He used his spiritual sense to check every inch of it, hoping to find the reason why the evolution was incomplete. Xia Ruofei's mind was completely immersed in the space. He did not realize that while he was trying to establish a connection with the spirit map started to emit a green light. Xia Ruofei's mind was still scanning the spirit map, inch by inch, and the light from the spirit map scroll was getting brighter and brighter. After breaking through a critical point, the spirit painting suddenly floated in the air. It hovered in the air for a moment before it suddenly accelerated and shot straight towards Xia Ruofei's forehead like a bolt of lightning. Xia Ruofei's eyes were slightly closed as he communicated with the space telepathically. He was not on guard in the bedroom, which was a safe environment. Moreover, the speed of the spirit map was too fast. Everything happened in a flash and the scroll had entered Xia Ruofei's forehead. Xia Ruofei suddenly felt a sharp pain. Then, he felt as if his head was about to be torn apart. Even though he had gone through hellish training in the special forces and had developed an extraordinary willpower, he could not help but scream. The unbearable pain continued. Xia Ruofei felt as if his head was going to explode. He held his head and rolled on the ground in pain. A minute later, Xia Ruofei's vision turned black and he passed out. After a long time, Xia Ruofei finally woke up. Everything that had happened was like a dream, but the pain was so deep that even Xia Ruofei, who had a strong will, could not help but shiver. However, at this moment, it seemed that nothing had happened. He checked his body and found that he was not missing any parts. Even the headache had disappeared without a trace. What had just happened? Xia Ruofei could not understand. At this time, his gaze inadvertently fell on the bed, and his expression changed drastically. The spirit painting that he had placed on his bed was nowhere to be seen. This spirit painting scroll could be said to be the foundation of Xia Ruofei's life. Without the magical space in the spirit painting scroll, everything would return to its original point. Xia Ruofei broke out in a cold sweat. He kept trying to recall what had just happened, trying to find the reason why the spirit map scroll had disappeared. At this moment, Xia Ruofei subconsciously lowered his head and revealed a shocked expression. He could not help but open his mouth wide. P.S. I'll be on Sanjiang recommendation this week. Please give me your Sanjiang tickets. Kidian's readers can get one ticket every day. It's free and is on the old website, Sanjiang channel. After getting it, the voting will also be on that channel page. It's a little troublesome. Thank you, everyone. Xia Ruofei suddenly realized that there was a faint mark on his right palm. It was the shape of an unrolled painting. The mark was very faint and could not be discovered if one did not look carefully. However, Xia Ruofei had been thinking about the spirit map scroll, so he noticed the mark at first glance. He raised his hand in surprise and examined it carefully. After examining every detail of the mark, he was even more certain that it was a spirit map scroll. Why did the spirit painting scroll disappear, and why did an identical imprint appear in his palm? Xia Ruofei could not help but frown. A moment later, a light bulb went off in Xia Ruofei's head. He could not help but pat his forehead. He realized that he had been too far away in his panic. If he wanted to find the location of the spirit map, the fastest way was not to use his eyes. Xia Ruofei immediately calmed down and used his mind to communicate with the spirit map. Sure enough, his mind instantly established a connection with the spirit map scroll, and this connection was much closer than before. Then, Xia Ruofei saw with his own eyes that the mark on his palm flashed slightly, and then the ancient spirit map scroll appeared in his hand. Out of thin air. Seeing this familiar picture, Xia Ruofei's heart settled. As he gradually calmed down, he began to think about everything that had just happened. The bone-piercing pain still left him with lingering fear. Xia Ruofei did not know what had happened, but it seemed like he had just absorbed the spirit painting into his body. Moreover, he could summon it at any time with a single thought. Xia Ruofei looked at the painting in his hand and an idea came to his mind. He immediately used his mind to communicate with the spirit painting scroll again, thinking of taking it back. As expected, the spirit painting scroll disappeared, and the faint mark appeared on his palm again. Xia Ruofei was overjoyed. He tried it a few times and was soon able to take out or put away the scroll with great familiarity. Xia Ruofei was now sure that the painting had merged with his body. This change surprised Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei had always been troubled by the issue of confidentiality. Although the possibility of his spirit painting being lost or stolen was very low as a special forces elite, covering up the spirit painting itself was a big problem. It was still fine since it was winter, and they were wearing thick clothes. It would be hard to find them if they were hidden close to their bodies. However, Xia Ruofei could not think of any good ideas in the summer. And now, all the problems were solved. The spirit painting scroll had been integrated into his body, and he could take it out at any time when he needed it. Usually, it was just a tiny mark on his palm. As long as Xia Ruofei paid more attention, it would be impossible to notice. This was really an unexpected surprise. Xia Ruofei summoned the spirit painting scroll from his palm and entered the space. After absorbing more than 300,000 yuan worth of jade, the size of the space did not change. It was still about 4 acres. The strange flower had not grown yet, but Xia Ruofei was in a good mood. He was even happier than the previous 2 space evolutions. Furthermore, Xia Ruofei could feel that the entire space was filled with a trace of spiritual energy. He felt relaxed and happy. The succulent plants, vegetables, and fruits also looked more energetic than before. It was clear that this evolution didn't upgrade the realm, but it brought great benefits. In the future, the growth of crops in the realm would definitely be faster, and with time flowing 20 times faster, the speed would be even more amazing. Xia Ruofei first picked the ripe vegetables in the medium and stored them properly. At the same time, he sowed and planted again. While doing these things, he was even more determined to focus his vegetable planting on the outside world. With the unique conditions in the yin-yang space, he had to speed up his pace of making money and plant something more valuable. Thinking of this, Xia Ruofei immediately went to check on the new material of the Phoebe Zhenin. He had buried 2 of them, so he was checking the Phoebe Zhenin wood that was naturally placed in the medium. Xia Ruofei looked at it carefully and his face lit up. The surface of this piece of Phoebe Zhenin wood already had traces of a crystalline substance. Under the light, it flickered. Although it was not a beautiful gold color, the speed was already quite amazing. Xia Ruofei had only placed this piece of Phoebe Zhenin wood in the medium for 3 to 4 days. Under the speed of time that was 20 times faster than normal, it had only been 2 months at most. In the outside world, it would take at least half a year for natural oxidation to reach this level. This was enough to prove Xia Ruofei's judgment that it was absolutely feasible to plant gold silk nanmu in the medium. The next step was to find suitable high-quality nanmu trees to transplant. The 70-centimeter Phoebe Zhenin that Liang Qichao mentioned was a good choice. Such a huge Phoebe Zhenin had already formed its core and had a good foundation. In the spirit map space, with the flow of time 20 times faster and the killer flower petals, Xia Ruofei was confident that he could make it grow in a relatively short time even if the growth rate of the Phoebe Zhenin was frighteningly slow. However, this matter had to be put on hold for a while, because Xia Ruofei did not have enough money. A 70-centimeter Phoebe Zhenin tree would cost at least a few 100,000 yuan. Although Xia Ruofei had more than 2 million yuan in cash, he did not have much left after spending it on the farm. He could only give Liang Qichao a call to see if he could reserve this tree and trade with it after a while. Xia Ruofei couldn't help but sigh. By right, I'm already earning money far faster than the average person, so why do I always feel like I'm short of money? Thinking about the astronomical amount of jade needed to upgrade the realm, Xia Ruofei could not help but have a headache. However, he had to take things one step at a time, so he quickly adjusted his mentality. As for the remaining 2 pieces of Phoebe Zhenin, Xia Ruofei did not dig them out to examine them because he already knew that it was better to let the 2 pieces of wood form into ebony under the most natural conditions. Xia Ruofei then went to check on the succulents and fish ponds. The succulent mother plant had basically recovered. In such an environment, it would take at most a few days for a new round of cutting breeding. The fish in the fish pond were growing very quickly. Xia Ruofei picked a grass carp randomly and weighed it in his hand. It was almost half a catty. This rate of growth was also quite astonishing. In the outside world, it would take about 2 to 3 years to raise grass carp, and it would take at least half a year for them to grow to about half a catty. However, in the medium, it had only taken 6 to 7 days to reach this weight. The red arowana was also swimming around in the small pond in high spirits. It should be experiencing the first time in its life that it had lost its hair. The red color on its scales was becoming more and more obvious, and it was growing very well. Xia Ruofei walked around the medium and then left, satisfied. The next day, the construction team sent by Liang Qichao officially entered the venue. The surroundings of the holiday villa were no longer as quiet as before. Large construction machinery was constantly working, and the construction site was a busy scene. As the chief supervisor of this project, Manager Li had been keeping an eye on the boss's son at the construction site and personally telling him that this project must be done with all his might without any flaws or slacking. It must be a model project, so Manager Li naturally did not dare to slack off. Xia Ruofei did not have anything else to do. He stood on the balcony on the 2nd floor of the villa and looked at the construction site. He thought that he would build his own farm here and become the birthplace of his career. He would be able to produce the best quality food and medicine continuously. He could not help but feel a sense of ambition. At this moment, Xia Ruofei saw an orange shadow from the corner of his eye. He turned around and saw a bright orange Porsche 911 driving into the villa's courtyard. Ling Qingshe, who was wearing a light yellow down jacket and a cute plush hat, got out of the car. She looked up at Xia Ruofei, who was on the 2nd floor balcony. The corners of her mouth slightly curved up into a beautiful arc, revealing a half-smile expression. She just tilted her head slightly and looked into Xia Ruofei's eyes. Xia Ruofei jogged down to the courtyard of the villa. Ling Qingshe was still leaning on the Porsche. Under the afternoon sun, her face had a lazy expression, which made her look very charming. When Xia Ruofei saw her, he could not help but think of that sweet kiss from the other day. He greeted Ling Qingshe awkwardly, "Qingshe, long time no see." Ling Qingshe looked at Xia Ruofei with a half-smile and asked, "Are you not going to contact me if I don't come to your house?" Xia Ruofei laughed dryly and scratched his head. "Isn't this the days? Don't mention what happened that day." Ling Qingshui's face turned red as she interrupted Xia Ruofei. "Okay, I won't mention it," Xia Ruofei said. "Qingshe, are you looking for me?" Ling Qingshe pursed her lips and said, "My father received news from President Zheng that your company has been registered. Also, today, when our purchaser went back and reported that you are carrying out a large-scale construction project here, Comrade Ling couldn't sit still. Didn't he send me here to use my beauty to seduce you? So that you can sign the official contract with us as soon as possible." At the mention of the honey trap, Ling Qingshe couldn't help but burst out laughing. This laugh broke the awkward atmosphere between the two of them. Xia Ruofei also felt relieved and quickly said, "Of course, there's no problem with signing the contract. Even if you didn't come and look for me, I was prepared to go to your company to settle this matter in the next 2 days." Then, Xia Ruofei said, "Why don't we do it today? Are we going back to the city now?" Ling Qingshe chuckled and said, "There's no need to be in such a hurry, right? It's almost mealtime. Don't you understand that I'm here at this time?" Ling Qingshe paused for a moment, then said slowly, "I remember someone still owes me 2 meals." Xia Ruofei laughed and said, "That's even more of a problem. I'm also preparing to cook. Let's go in and sit." Ling Qingshe cheered and went up to hold Xia Ruofei's arm. She stuck close to him and the two of them walked into the villa together. Xia Ruofei did not greet Ling Qingshe and just let her watch TV in the living room. He went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. The ingredients were naturally the vegetables from the spirit map space, and it would be fine to pair it with 1 or 2 meat dishes. Xia Ruofei had been cooking for himself these days, so he was more skilled. When he was preparing the meat dishes, Xia Ruofei suddenly thought of the grass carp in the fish pond in the interspace. The grass carp there were basically about half a catty, so it was very good to get 2 of them to braise or steam. However, the problem was that Ling Qingshe was in the living room outside. Xia Ruofei definitely could not enter the spirit map space to fish. At this moment, Xia Ruofei had an idea. Ever since the space evolved, he could directly take out items from the space through telepathy. In theory, he could also take out the grass fish directly. However, he had only taken ordinary items in the past, and the grass carp was constantly swimming in the spatial fish pond, so it might be very difficult to actually do it. However, Xia Ruofei still wanted to give it a try. Not only was it to add a dish for lunch, but he also wanted to test his own idea. Xia Ruofei looked around and saw that Ling Qingshe was focused on a variety show. Her long legs were placed on the coffee table, so she would not suddenly come to the kitchen. With a thought, the spirit painting appeared in Xia Ruofei's hand. He held the spirit map scroll in his hand and began to connect with the spirit map space. Every blade of grass and every tree in the space was clearly reflected in his mind. In the past, when he took something out, he only needed to lock his mind on the item he wanted to take, and then give an order, and the item would be taken out of the space. Hence, Xia Ruofei focused all his attention on the fish pond in the space. He quietly looked at a grass carp in the fish pond and was highly focused. However, the moment he gave the order, the grass carp wagged its tail and swam forward. It burrowed into a bush of seaweed and Xia Ruofei missed. However, Xia Ruofei was not discouraged. Instead, he persevered and tried again. This was indeed much harder than taking things out normally. Xia Ruofei tried 3 times in a row, but none of them succeeded. On the 4th attempt, Xia Ruofei finally found the right time. He locked his mind on a grass carp and gave the order. The next moment, a grass carp appeared out of thin air and landed on the sink. The grass carp was obviously confused about the situation. It didn't understand why it was swimming freely in the fish pond a moment ago, but the next moment, its environment had suddenly changed. Therefore, it was very flustered and flapped its tail in the sink, making a banging sound. Xia Ruofei quickly kept the spirit map space into his body and then threw the grass carp onto the anvil. He patted it flat with the knife and the grass carp immediately became dizzy and obediently lay on the anvil. Xia Ruofei went to the kitchen door and sneaked a look. Seeing that Ling Qingshe did not come over because of the commotion in the kitchen, he took out the spirit map space again and tried the same thing twice. Once again, he successfully took out a grass carp from the space fish pond. Xia Ruofei was very satisfied. It was obvious that he had a closer connection with the spirit map space during this period of time. He was also more familiar with the use of the spirit map space. He deftly processed the two fish, and in a short while, 2 fragrant braised grass carp were out of the pot. The golden braised fish was sprinkled with tender green coriander, and a fragrance assailed the nose, making people's appetite increase. Very quickly, Xia Ruofei had prepared lunch. He served the dishes he had cooked, one by one. He had especially placed the plate of braised grass carp in the middle. Then, he brought out 2 more bowls of rice, before calling Ling Qingshe to wash her hands and eat. Ling Qingshe had eaten taoyuan vegetables a few times, so she naturally couldn't resist the temptation of good food. She immediately got up to wash her hands and sat at the table. What a sumptuous feast! Ling Qingshe exclaimed in surprise when she saw the dishes on the table. Then, she pretended to be mature and said, "Comrade Xia Ruofei, you did well this time." "Yup. It's worthy of praise." Xia Ruofei couldn't help but laugh. "Thank you for your praise, Your Highness." "Your Ladyship, may I ask if we can eat now?" Ling Qingshui's expression changed, and she said sternly, "It's approved." "Little Fizi, serve Bengong my meal. So you're treating me like a eunuch." Xia Ruofei said angrily, "Do you think I won't cook for you next time?" Ling Qingshe giggled and begged for mercy. "I won't dare to do it again. I won't dare to do it again. You're the emperor, okay. This is more like it." Xia Ruofei snorted. However, after thinking about it, he felt that it was a little inappropriate. He was the emperor, and Ling Qingshe was the empress. Wasn't this just a perfect couple? Xia Ruofei looked at Ling Qingshe and saw that her face was also slightly red. She avoided his gaze and changed the topic. "Let's start. I'm here to try and see if your cooking has improved. I suggest you try this braised grass carp first," Xia Ruofei quickly said. "Oh, is there anything special about it?" Ling Qingshe asked. Xia Ruofei smiled mysteriously and said, "Why don't you try it first and you'll know." In fact, even he himself had never tried the taste of the grass carp produced by the space fish pond, so he was also very excited about it. Ling Qingshui's interest was immediately piqued. Her chopsticks reached directly for the plate of braised grass carp, and she picked up a small piece of fish and put it in her mouth. It's delicious. And it has a unique taste." Ling Qingshe said in surprise, "This fish meat is tender and delicious. There is no fishy smell at all, and it even has a faint fragrance." Ling Qingshe continued to ask, "Ruofei, could this be another grass carp that you've developed with your new techniques? Our Lingji restaurant wants to make a reservation." Xia Ruofei smiled bitterly. "We did use some of the new technology. However, we only kept a small amount. We kept it for ourselves. What about the future? Didn't you clear out the fish pond over there? You have to rear fish, right?" Ling Qingshe didn't give up easily and continued to ask. "In the future, we should do some aquatic farming, right? However, they might not raise grass carp." Xia Ruofei shrugged his shoulders and said, "Qingshe, don't worry. If my peach blossom farm has a new ingredient, I'll definitely give priority to cooperating with Lingji Food and Beverage, okay? That's more like it. That's interesting." Ling Qingshe giggled. "Let's eat. You're thinking about work even when you're eating, aren't you tired?" Xia Ruofei smiled. I'll eat a few more pieces of fish. This fish is too delicious. Don't snatch it from me." Ling Qingshe pouted. Okay, I won't fight with you." Xia Ruofei looked at Ling Qingshe with a pampering gaze and said with a smile, "Don't let the fish bones get in your way." Ling Qingshe was too busy eating to answer Xia Ruofei's question. Seeing that Ling Qingshe was eating with relish, Xia Ruofei's heart was slightly moved. He found an excuse to get up and go to the kitchen. He quietly took out the spirit map scroll, then connected to the space with his mind. He concentrated his mind on the grass carp in the fish pond in the space. Perhaps it was because he had practiced a few times before, but Xia Ruofei was much more skilled now. It did not take long for him to successfully capture 4 grass carps. Xia Ruofei found 2 small buckets and put 2 grass carps in each bucket. He poured water into the buckets and kept them in the water. He put one of the buckets back into the medium and went back to the dining room to eat. Naturally, Ling Qingshe was very satisfied with the food. In fact, every time she ate a meal that Xia Ruofei made, she was very happy. On one hand, it was because the vegetables in Taoyuan were too delicious. More importantly, it was made by Xia Ruofei himself, so it had a special meaning. After the meal, Xia Ruofei took the initiative to go to Ling Qingshui's company to sign the official contract. Ling Qingshe had originally wanted Xia Ruofei to take her car there, and even said that she would send him back later. However, other than going to the Ling's restaurant to sign the contract, Xia Ruofei was also planning to visit Hu Zi's mother and Lin Chao. Hence, he politely declined Ling Qingshe and decided to drive himself. Ling Qingshe pouted unhappily. However, when Xia Ruofei brought out the 2 grass carp from the kitchen as a gift, she immediately turned from displeasure to joy and became happy again. A girl's thoughts were sometimes so difficult to guess. Perhaps the 2 fish were nothing, even if they were extremely delicious. However, the fact that Xia Ruofei wanted to give her 2 fish meant something completely different to her. Xia Ruofei called manager Li over and exchanged a few words with him. Then, he and Ling Qingshe drove their own cars and left the holiday villa. The 2 of them drove to the Ling G&B headquarters located in the Nantai district. Ling Qingshe informed her father, Ling Xiaotian, on the way. Ling Xiaotian was also very concerned and personally went to the first floor to welcome her. While they were waiting, Ling Xiaotian kept pacing back and forth in the lobby on the first floor, causing the front desk girl to feel nervous. When she saw that the person Ling Xiaotian was waiting for was actually a young and handsome lad, and this lad was even walking in with the little princess of Ling Ji, chatting and laughing, the fire of gossip in her heart instantly burned. Could he be the chairman's future son-in-law? Naturally, the front desk girl did not know that Ling Xiaotian placed so much importance on it because of the peach blossom vegetables that Xia Ruofei had. It was too important to the current Ling Ji restaurant. With the 100 caddies of Taoyuan vegetables sold every day, the business of the Ling Ji's flagship store skyrocketed. The average turnover was 40% higher than before. Minghao restaurant's rising momentum was suddenly suppressed. In some sense, Xia Ruofei was the savior of their company. Therefore, Ling Xiaotian also fully displayed the importance he placed on this matter. Not only did he personally go downstairs to welcome them, but he also gathered all the company's employees who were at least at the manager level and above and held a signing ceremony in the company's big meeting room. Even the staff in charge of the company's journal came over with a camera to take pictures and prepare to publish a special issue in the company's internal journal. Xia Ruofei was not used to such a grand reception. After signing the contract, he declined Ling Xiaotian's invitation to dinner and left in a hurry. However, Xia Ruofei did not go straight to Hu Zi's mother's house. Instead, he went to the seed sect's headquarters. Dao Yuan Farm's construction period would be completed in a month at most. By then, they would have to start large-scale planting. Xia Ruofei thought that since he was in the city, he might as well solve the problem of seeds first. When they arrived at the seed company, Xia Ruofei picked out more than 10 common vegetable seeds on the table. He ordered 5 kilograms of each. Before he came, he had roughly estimated that these seeds should be enough for the first round of sowing. Xia Ruofei had chosen the best seeds and spent 5,000 to 6,000 yuan on them. To the seed market department, he was a big customer. Therefore, the manager personally received them with a very warm attitude. After Xia Ruofei made the payment, the manager called for a few shop assistants to help Xia Ruofei move all the packaged seeds into the pickup truck. Just as Xia Ruofei was about to leave, he suddenly had an idea. He turned around and asked, "Manager, do you sell ginseng seeds here?" Xia Ruofei had long wanted to plant some valuable things in the realm, but he did not know what was more valuable. However, he knew about ginseng. He had been busy for a while and did not have time to spare. Since he was at the seed company today, Xia Ruofei decided to ask about the situation first. The manager was stunned for a moment and then said, "Sir, of course we have ginseng seeds here, but this season is not suitable for planting ginseng. Moreover, the survival rate of ginseng is very low, so it's not easy to artificially plant it. Ginseng seeds were not cheap, and the manager had only reminded Xia Ruofei out of good intentions. Xia Ruofei laughed. It's okay. I'll just buy some and plant them for fun. What's the best ginseng seed you have here? Our company has authentic Changbai mountain ginseng seeds, but the price? The manager said. The price doesn't matter, just give me half a caddy. Xia Ruofei said without even asking the price. All right. Please wait a moment. The manager quickly said. After a while, Xia Ruofei left the seed company with a sealed plastic bag full of ginseng seeds. This half a caddy of seeds cost him more than 600 yuan, which was not cheap. However, Xia Ruofei naturally did not care about this small amount of money. Once these ginseng seeds were successfully planted in the origin space, the benefits would be more than 10 times or even 100 times. Xia Ruofei drove the pickup truck out of the seed company and came to a place with no one around. He parked the car and went to the back of the truck. He climbed into the back of the truck and fixed the cover on the back of the pickup truck. As long as one did not stick their head in to take a look, they would not be able to see what was going on inside the truck. Xia Ruofei kept all the vegetable and ginseng seeds into the spirit map space. Then, he took out the other small bucket with the grass carp and some paradise vegetables and placed them in the trunk. Then, Xia Ruofei returned to the driver's seat and continued to drive straight to Huzi's mother's house in the forestry bureau. Xia Ruofei parked his car at the family area of the forestry bureau. He carried a small water bucket in one hand and a basket of peach garden vegetables in the other to the door of Huzi's mother's house on the 3rd floor. He put down the water bucket and knocked on the door. Soon, the door opened. Huzi's mother was very happy to see Xia Ruofei. Ruofei is here. Come in, come in. Xia Ruofei bent down to pick up the water bucket and followed Huzi's mother into the house. Zi's mother nagged, you child, just come. Why did he bring things? Aren't you treating Auntie as an outsider? Auntie, these are all vegetables that I grew myself. I also raised the fish with my friends. I brought them here for you and Chow, to try. Xia Ruofei smiled and asked, Auntie, how's your recovery? Er's mother said happily, I'm feeling great now. I think he should have fully recovered. Ruofei, that medicine of yours is really godly. Xia Ruofei was placing the vegetables in the kitchen. He poked his head out and smiled. Auntie, I made some Chinese medicine yesterday and brought it to you today. Please eat for a while longer. I don't need to eat, right? I'm already fine. Huzi's mother said, it must be expensive to make this medicine, right? Xia Ruofei tidied up the vegetables and walked out of the kitchen. It doesn't cost much. They're all common Chinese medicinal herbs. After he finished speaking, he took out the bottle of flower petal solution that he had prepared earlier and handed it to Huzi's mother. Then, he said, Auntie, you can continue to take it even if you're well. This liquid doesn't have any side effects. Not only does it cure diseases, but it also has good health. You can drink it without worry. Woof. Ruofei, thank you for your hard work. Er's mother nodded in response. Shouldn't I be filial to you? He asked. Xia Ruofei smiled and continued to ask, oh right, Auntie, is it Chow, Er's winter break soon? I think there's still 2 to 3 weeks left. Huzi's mother said. Oh, after the holidays, you and Chow, can stay at my place for a while. Xia Ruofei said, I've rented a small villa in Zhonggong town. I've also bought some land to build a farm. The environment there is better than the city. Let's celebrate the new year together this year. All right, I'll do the laundry and cook for you. Huzi's mother agreed happily. Xia Ruofei smiled bitterly. Auntie, you don't have to do the laundry or cook. You can just enjoy your life. I can't stay idle. Isn't it good that I can help you with something? Huzi's mother said. All right, we'll talk about it when the time comes. Xia Ruofei said helplessly. The two of them sat down and started to chat. Huzi's mother told her about her and Chow, Er's life, while Xia Ruofei picked out some of the things that he was busy with to tell Huzi's mother. The old and the young were having a good time chatting. When it was around 4 o'clock, Huzi's mother got up and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Xia Ruofei naturally had to stay for dinner. Otherwise, not only would Huzi's mother not agree, Lin Chao would also not agree if she came back and found out. Xia Ruofei sat in the living room and watched TV. In no time, he could smell the alluring aroma of food coming from the kitchen. At this moment, the door opened. Xia Ruofei looked up and heard Lin Chao's voice before he saw her. "Mom, what delicious food did you make? It smells so good." As she spoke, she took a pair of slippers from the shoe rack at the door and changed into them. When she walked into the living room, she saw Xia Ruofei sitting on the sofa and smiling at her. Lin Chao shrieked in surprise. She threw away her bag and pounced on him, shouting, "Brother Ruofei." Xia Ruofei immediately felt a warm, fragrant, and soft jade in his arms. Lin Chao hugged him tightly. The girls in the third year of high school were not children anymore. Lin Chao had developed well and her body had a faint fragrance. Xia Ruofei suddenly felt that it was a little too much for her. He quickly said, let go, let go." "No." Lin Chao chuckled. After saying that, she hugged him even tighter. Xia Ruofei could only break away from her embarrassedly. If she hugged him any longer, his body would have a reaction. That would be embarrassing. Lin Chao looked at Xia Ruofei and asked, "Brother Ruofei, why didn't you come to see us for so long?" Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "I was a little busy a while ago, so I'm here now. By the way, how are your studies? You didn't play any tricks, did you?" "What naughty? He's a good student." Lin Chao said, "Your studies are good. The teachers are better than the teachers in our county middle school, and there are many top students among my classmates. I feel like I've improved a lot." "That's good." Xia Ruofei said, "Study hard. When you get into college, I'll give you a big gift. There's even a gift to receive." Lin Chao was overjoyed and quickly asked, "Can you tell me what the gift is?" "You'll know when the time comes. It's definitely a surprise," Xia Ruofei said mysteriously. "So you have to work harder. You have to at least get into 211 school to get a present. HMPH. Don't look down on me. Although my foundation is a little worse than my classmates, it's not impossible for me to get into the 211 exam with hard work." Lin Chao puffed up her chest and said, "Brother Ruofei, just wait for your wallet to bleed." "I can't wait for that." Xia Ruofei laughed. At this moment, Zi's mother popped her head out of the kitchen and said, "Chao, why do you keep pestering your brother Ruofei the moment you come back? Why aren't you changing your clothes? Get ready to wash your hands and eat." "I know." Lin Chao stuck out her tongue at Xia Ruofei and said. Soon, Lin Chao went back to her room and changed into a cute pink cotton, padded jacket. Then, she ran to the living room and chatted with Xia Ruofei about school. She only stopped when Zi's mother finished cooking and urged her to wash her hands. When Lin Chao went to wash her hands, Zi's mother said to Xia Ruofei, "Ruofei, Chao, used to like to pester her brother and chat with him. Ever since Zi left, she's rarely this happy." "Thank you." Xia Ruofei saw that. Zi's mother's eyes were red and quickly said, "Auntie, look at what you're saying. Zi's sister is my sister. We're a family, what's there to be polite about? I'll come to visit you often in the future." Zi's mother said, "Pleased, it's enough that you have this thought. Young people should be busy with their careers. Just come and visit when you're free." After Lin Chao washed her hands, the three of them sat around the table and had dinner together. Zi's mother's cooking skills were quite good, and the ingredients were all produced in the spirit map space. Chao was amazed by how delicious the food was, especially the 2 grass carp. Even Zi's mother was full of praise for the taste of the dish. Seeing the happy smiles on Zi's mother and Chao's faces, Xia Ruofei couldn't help but think of Zi's face and the last words he had said when the bullet hit him. Ruofei, help me. Take care of my mom. And my younger sister. Zi, don't worry. I'm here for everything, Xia Ruofei said in his heart. At around 8 in the evening, Xia Ruofei finally bade farewell to Zi's mother and Lin Chao's reluctant gaze. When he drove back to the holiday villa, he saw that the construction site was still burning through the night. The entire construction site was brightly lit by several strong lights. Large construction machinery was still roaring, and many workers were busy on the construction site. In order to complete the project quickly, Liang Qichao had ordered the entire construction team to work in 3 shifts to ensure that it could be completed before the Spring Festival. Manager Li had already gone back to rest, and a deputy manager was taking his place. After Xia Ruofei parked the car, he went to the construction site and found the deputy manager. He asked about the progress of the project and thanked him for his hard work. Then, Xia Ruofei took out another 1,000 yuan and asked the deputy manager to send someone to drive to Changping County to buy supper for the workers. The deputy manager had already been reminded by manager Li that Xia Ruofei had a close relationship with Liang Qichao, so he thanked him repeatedly and patted his chest to assure him that he would ensure the quality and quantity and complete the construction task on time. Xia Ruofei chatted with him for a while and then returned to the villa. He returned to his bedroom and locked the door and windows. Then, he summoned the spirit map scroll and entered the medium. After taking a deep breath of the air in the space, which was fresher than the outside world, Xia Ruofei felt all his fatigue go away. The vegetable seeds and ginseng seeds that he had bought in the afternoon were neatly stacked on the space. Xia Ruofei's control of the spirit map space was getting better and better. He could store items directly into the space from the outside and also accurately control where they would appear in the space. The vegetable seeds were not needed for the time being. Xia Ruofei picked up the plastic bag containing the Changbai Mountain ginseng seeds. Before this, Xia Ruofei had done some research on ginseng cultivation techniques. He felt that the information he found online was too complicated. Even if he followed the instructions strictly, the survival rate was very low. Therefore, he decided to do it his own way. This was also because he had great confidence in the spirit map space. He found a large plastic bucket and poured half of the space spirit pond water into it. Then, he took the preservation box containing the petals of the strange flower, which contained the 11 petals that had been stored over the past few days. Xia Ruofei picked up one of the flowers with a pair of tweezers and threw it into the plastic bucket. If these ginseng seeds could grow successfully, they would be worth a lot. Hence, Xia Ruofei had to spend a lot of money and used an entire flower petal. As soon as the flower petal entered the spiritual pond, it immediately melted without a trace. Xia Ruofei was still worried. He found a stick and stirred the flower petal solution in the plastic bucket evenly. Then, he opened the plastic bag and poured all the Changbai Mountain ginseng seeds into the plastic bucket. He began to soak them. Then, Xia Ruofei left the medium and allowed the seeds to absorb the essence of the petals. He went to the bathroom to take a shower. It was almost time, so he entered the space again. Xia Ruofei picked up all the ginseng seeds that had been soaked in the plastic bucket. He didn't do as the internet said, but instead, he found a piece of land on the periphery of the space. After the space evolved, there was a large amount of open land on the periphery, so he scattered the ginseng seeds. Then, he dug up some soil from the side and covered the seeds evenly. He didn't waste the small half bucket of solution. He poured it into the watering can and poured it all into the field. After that, Xia Ruofei decided not to take care of the ginseng anymore. He had already given the ginseng seeds the best conditions. If not all of them survived, then there must be a problem with the seeds themselves. Besides, Xia Ruofei did this because he wanted to simulate the wild environment to the greatest extent and improve the quality of the ginseng. Then, Xia Ruofei walked around the space. He picked the ripe vegetables and stored them. He checked the grass carps in the fish pond and the red arowana in the small pond. They were all growing very well. The oxidation level of the Phoebe genin wood had increased again, and golden threads were already faintly visible. The mother succulent plant had been fully restored. The new succulent seedlings that were left in the pots had also grown to the point where they could be cut with the help of the unique environment and the petal solution. Xia Ruofei decided to start a new round of cutting the next day. However, this time, he had to make a good plan and split it into several batches. The batch of mother plants that had grown from the latest succulent seedlings would be placed in the last batch for cutting. In the next few days, other than providing food for Shi Zhongyu and Ling Ji, Xia Ruofei would walk around the construction site and check on the progress. In addition, he carried out a new round of cutting breeding on the succulent mother plant. After a few days of rest, he put the first batch of succulent seedlings on the internet for sale again. He also put up an announcement to inform all users that if there were no special circumstances in the future, the frequency of new updates would be reduced to once every 5 days. This news naturally attracted many high-end players to spread the news, and it quickly became a hot post on Baidu's succulent bar. Naturally, the sales were as hot as ever, and they were all sold out within a few minutes. After all the succulent seedlings were sold, Xia Ruofei would earn another 100,000 yuan. And this was only the first batch. In the future, there would be another batch every 5 days. In total, they would bring in 600,000 yuan a month. In addition to the 300,000 yuan from Taoyuan vegetables, Xia Ruofei could earn at least 1,000,000 yuan a month from these two items. After making a rough estimate of his income, Xia Ruofei's mind started to wander again. Now, he had enough money to pay for the project, and he still had some balance. Moreover, the 2 million or so construction funds did not need to be paid in one go, but in installments. The rest of the payment would only be paid after the construction was completed and the project was accepted. The entire construction would take about a month. And in this month, Xia Ruofei could earn another million. He had set his mind on the 70 centimeters Phoebe Zhenin tree that he had heard about last time. Now that the funds were basically guaranteed, it was better to buy it now, in case of any trouble. If this dragged on for a while, the Nanmu would be cut down, or someone else would get there first. It would be difficult to find such a suitable Nanmu again. Hence, Xia Ruofei immediately gave Liang Qichao a call. "Ruofei, is there something you need?" Liang Qichao said enthusiastically, then asked, "Could there be a problem with the project?" No, brother Liang. The construction team you sent is very good, and Manager Li is very responsible. I don't have to worry about anything. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "I'm looking for you today because I need your help with another matter." "Oh, if there's anything you need, just tell me. As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it," Liang Qichao said. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and said, "It's like this, brother Liang. Last time at your place, didn't we talk about Phoebe Zhenin wood? You said that you found a 70 centimeters thick Phoebe Zhenin wood when you asked someone to look for it. I want to ask you if you can help me contact it. I want to buy it. Why are you suddenly interested in the Phoebe Zhenin wood?" Liang Qichao asked with a smile. "I don't want it, it's a friend of mine." Xia Ruofei replied, "The friend who sold you the white-skinned lunar realm. When we were chatting today, I casually mentioned the Phoebe Zhenin and he was very interested in it and wanted to buy it." At the crucial moment, this friend could save Xia Ruofei a lot of trouble. When Liang Qichao heard that it was Xia Ruofei's friend who had the highest quality of meat, he immediately regarded him with even more importance. He said, "So it's your friend who wants it. No problem. I'll contact them immediately. As long as they haven't sold it yet, it shouldn't be a big problem." The Phoebe Zhenin was a rare tree species, so it was definitely not something that could be sold openly. However, Liang Qichao naturally had his own ways. Xia Ruofei continued, "Brother Liang, my friend wants to transplant the whole tree. If the tree has been cut down, he won't want it. Then I'll quickly ask. This thing is very valuable," Liang Qichao said quickly. "The villagers might chop it up and sell it if they find out." Xia Ruofei said, "Okay. I'll have to trouble you then, brother Liang. You can make the decision for me and negotiate the fees." Liang Qichao was still thinking about this matter, so the two of them hung up the phone without talking much. After a while, Liang Qichao called. Xia Ruofei heard his excited voice as soon as he answered the call. "Ruofei, I've asked around. That tree is still there." Then, he said with lingering fear, "But this matter is really mysterious. The villagers of that village are really preparing to secretly cut down the trees to exchange for money. Fortunately, I asked in time." "That's good." Xia Ruofei heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was glad that he had made this decision early. Liang Qichao continued, "I've talked about the price as well. They're insistent on 800,000. But the price is only slightly higher than the market price. It's still acceptable. After all, the price of the Phoebe Zhenin is rising every day. It's definitely not a loss to buy it." Xia Ruofei said without hesitation, "I'll take it. Brother Liang, I'll transfer 800,000 yuan to your account immediately. Please help me deal with this matter. As for the transportation fees, I'll pay you back later." "All right. Don't worry, leave it to me." "That's right," Liang Qichao said. "Send me your friend's address. I'll get them to send it over. Just pull him to my holiday villa." Xia Ruofei said, "We'll handle the rest by ourselves." "All right," Liang Qichao said. Precious trees like the Phoebe Zhenin were not allowed to be sold in public. However, Liang Qichao had his own channels, so he agreed readily. He was quite happy to do Xia Ruofei's powerful friend a favor. After hanging up, Xia Ruofei immediately drove to Chengping County and transferred 800,000 yuan to Liang Qichao's company account. In the next few days, Xia Ruofei spent his time waiting. Other than going into the medium to take care of the succulent and red arowana, he would wander around the construction site. Xia Ruofei was filled with satisfaction as he watched his farm take shape day by day. Ling Qingshe had also come to look for Xia Ruofei twice. Since the last time they met, the first kiss storm seemed to have passed, and the two of them got along very naturally again. In front of Xia Ruofei, Ling Qingshe was like a completely different person from her usual cold self. Not only was she very talkative, but she also liked to smile very much. Xia Ruofei's one sentence would often make her tremble. Her smile was very infectious. When Xia Ruofei was with her, his mood unconsciously became happy. On the afternoon of the fifth day, the Phoebe Zhenin wood that Xia Ruofei had been looking forward to finally arrived. A container truck drove to the entrance of the villa. A tall man in his late 20s alighted from the truck and shook hands with Xia Ruofei, who had come down to check on the situation. "You must be Mr. Xia. Our President Liang asked me to bring this Nanmu to you." Xia Ruofei was overjoyed to hear this. He quickly asked Manager Li to find some workers to unload the thick Phoebe Zhenin wood from the truck and place it in the villa's courtyard. Because this Nanmu was quite valuable, some small branches that were cut off for the convenience of transportation were also transported with the truck. The workers also unloaded the branches from the car. The tall man said to Xia Ruofei, "Mr. Xia, this tree has already been transported for more than 3 days, so if you want to transplant it, you may have to hurry." This Nanmu did look a little listless. Many of its branches and leaves had already wilted, and it looked very dispirited. "All right, thank you," Xia Ruofei said with a smile. The tall man said a few polite words and bade Xia Ruofei farewell. He got on the container truck and left the villa. Manager Li and the workers were all gathered around the Phoebe Zhenin wood, looking at the thick tree with great curiosity and whispering. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and went back to the villa to lock the door. Then, he entered the spirit map space and fetched a bucket of spatial spirit pool water. He then resolutely took out a strange flower petal and put it into the water. Then, he left the space with the bucket. After keeping the painting, Xia Ruofei carried the bucket back to the yard. Manager Li urged the workers to go back to work. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and stopped Manager Li. "Manager Li, everyone has been working hard these past few days, so let's not work overtime tonight and let everyone relax. It doesn't matter if the deadline is a day earlier or a day later." Actually, Xia Ruofei wanted to deal with the Phoebe Zhenin wood at night. If there were people at the construction site all night, it would be inconvenient. Since Xia Ruofei had said so, Manager Li was naturally happy and relaxed. He repeatedly expressed his gratitude and went to the construction site to supervise the workers. Xia Ruofei locked the door and walked around the Nanmu with a bucket of water. He sprinkled the petal solution on the leaves and then poured the remaining half of the bucket on the roots of the Nanmu. He was finally relieved. He believed that with the petals of this strange flower, this Nanmu tree worth more than 800,000 yuan would not die before it was transplanted. Xia Ruofei returned to his bedroom upstairs and looked at the Nanmu in the yard from the balcony. For the time being, he could only leave it there. He could only start to work when the workers went back at night. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and entered the spirit map space in his bedroom. He carried a shovel and a hoe to the place where he had scattered the ginseng seeds. Now, the ginseng seeds had all sprouted, and they had grown into inch-long seedlings, scattered sparsely in the area. Xia Ruofei found an empty space next to the ginseng seedling and dug a big hole. He was going to plant the Phoebe Zhenin next to the ginseng. After the Phoebe Zhenin had survived, the area of the crown would be huge. By then, it would definitely be able to cover the ginseng's growing area and create better conditions for the shady ginseng to grow. All they could do now was wait. The workers left work in the evening, and the construction site soon quieted down. Xia Ruofei patiently waited until the second half of the night. When the workers on duty at the construction site were all asleep, he went downstairs to the courtyard. The Phoebe Zhenin tree, after being nourished by the petal solution, was much more energetic than when it was unloading the truck. Xia Ruofei summoned the spirit painting and placed it gently at the side. Then, he grabbed the Phoebe Zhenin wood with both hands and started to connect with the space. He was also very nervous after Yingying obtained the space. He had never tried to send such a big guy into the space directly. Although the realm had evolved a few times and Xia Ruofei had been absorbing the petal solution continuously, his mental connection with the realm had become much closer. However, he was still not confident. However, Xia Ruofei had no other way out. He could only try. He took a deep breath, made up his mind, and sent a command to the space. The 70-centimeter, thick tree trembled at first, then disappeared into thin air with a swoosh. Xia Ruofei's face turned pale and his head was in so much pain that it felt like it was going to split open. It was as if thousands of needles were being inserted into his head at the same time. He felt as if his entire body had been hollowed out. His entire body swayed a few times and was on the verge of collapsing. This was a sign of mental exhaustion. Xia Ruofei quickly kept the painting in his palm. He held the wall with one hand and took out a bottle of mineral water from his pocket with the other. Inside was half a bottle of the spatial spirit pond water that Xia Ruofei had prepared in advance. It was filled with the petal solution. Xia Ruofei opened the bottle cap and gulped down half a bottle of water. Only then did he feel his energy slowly recovering. He had no doubt that if he didn't take the petal solution immediately, it would cause permanent damage to his brain. Xia Ruofei rested for a while before he fully recovered. He couldn't help but feel a lingering fear that Yu would really act according to her own abilities in the future. Today's actions were really a bit risky. However, Xia Ruofei believed that with the evolution of the realm and his continuous absorption of the petal solution, he would be able to easily transport the Nanmu in the near future. Xia Ruofei checked his condition and felt that there was no problem. He could feel that the overexertion this time had strengthened his connection with the space. However, Xia Ruofei did not dare to try again. He would rather improve gradually and steadily. He returned to the villa, went straight to the bedroom, and locked the door and windows. Then, he summoned the spirit painting from his palm and entered the space. When Xia Ruofei was sending the Phoebe Zhenin into the space, he could only control the position of its appearance as it was too big. After entering, Xia Ruofei took a look and felt very lucky. The Phoebe Zhenin wood had basically fallen into the big pit that he had dug in advance according to his instructions, but it was slightly tilted. If it had fallen somewhere else, it would have crushed the things in the space and Xia Ruofei would have to move it back into the hole. Even in this situation, Xia Ruofei had to put in a lot of effort. He had even built a simple pulley mechanism to straighten the big tree. Xia Ruofei found a few thick wooden sticks to support the Phoebe Zhenin tree and then filled the hole with soil. Then, he poured some water from the spirit pond in his space in a bottle of petal solution that he had prepared. These few days, Xia Ruofei's flower petals had been used up very quickly. Now, he only had 6 petals left. However, these expenses were worth it. In the future, it would produce hundreds or thousands of times the benefits. Moreover, he could harvest 5 petals every 3 days. As long as he saved them, it would be enough. Xia Ruofei left the medium. When he was about to take a shower and sleep, he suddenly thought of the branches that he had cut off from the Phoebe Zhenin tree in the courtyard. He had an idea and quickly went downstairs to the courtyard. He kept all the branches into the spirit map space. Compared to the entire golden Phoebe Zhenin tree, collecting these branches was naturally as easy as blowing off dust. Then, Xia Ruofei returned to his bedroom and entered the medium again. He picked out the slightly larger branches one by one and counted more than 20. Then, Xia Ruofei dug a hole in the open space outside the interspace and inserted the selected branches into the soil one by one. Then, he got some water from the spiritual pond and watered them one by one. If it were in the outside world, the cutting would not have been successful. Even in the medium, Xia Ruofei was not confident, so he did not waste the precious petals. His idea was simple: those branches were lost anyway, and if 1 or 2 of them survived, it would be a profit for him. Even if none of them survived, he wouldn't lose anything. Xia Ruofei threw the remaining small leaves under the big Nanmu tree. They would soon rot and become nutrients for the Nanmu tree. It could be considered that the leaves had returned to their roots. For the next half a month, Xia Ruofei spent most of his time in the villa. Other than providing vegetables to the two families, he would walk around the construction site and take care of the various plants and animals in the interspace. During this period, Xia Ruofei carried out 3 more batches of cutting and breeding. Every 5 days, he would put new succulent seedlings on the internet to sell, but they would be sold out every time. Half a month in the outside world was almost a year in the medium. Now, the space was thriving. The Phoebe Zhenin tree had long survived and had even grown a circle. Now, it was full of leaves and branches. What surprised Xia Ruofei even more was that the 20 or so branches of the Phoebe Zhenin that had been casually planted in the soil of the space had all survived and were growing quite well. This also made Xia Ruofei reevaluate the value of this spirit map space. The vegetables were picked one after another, needless to say. The fish in the space fish pond had grown to more than 3 caddies. Even if time was not taken into account, the growth rate was still quite amazing. The precious red arowana had already grown to nearly 40 centimeters, and its scales had all turned pure red. It was very pleasing to the eye as it swam in the small pond. This red arowana was a female and had basically reached the adult stage. In order to match the red arowana, Xia Ruofei even made a trip to the seafood market. He was quite lucky. There was a store that was selling a red arowana of similar size. Xia Ruofei spent more than 20,000 yuan to buy this fish. There were already 2 red arowana in the small fish pond in the space. However, the one that was let in later was not as good as his wife, in terms of the purity of its scales or its spirit. However, Xia Ruofei believed that this male fish would grow better and better in no time. The piece of Phoebe Zhenin wood placed in the space had also been completely oxidized. Beautiful golden threads appeared on the wood, and under the light, these golden threads connected together like golden clouds. It was obviously a top-grade piece of Phoebe Zhenin wood. Just this small piece of material alone was worth at least 100,000 yuan. This gave Xia Ruofei more confidence in planting the Phoebe Zhenin in the medium. In the outside world, Xia Ruofei's paradise farm had already taken shape. 8 huge modern film greenhouses were being built at the same time. The roads in the farm were also beginning to take shape, and the orchards in the back mountain were also being developed. The laying of various pipelines, the construction of fences, the greenery in the field, and the construction of fish ponds were all progressing steadily. At this rate, there would be no pressure to deliver it before the Spring Festival. There were more than 20 days until the Spring Festival. Xia Ruofei remembered that he had not visited Professor Tian for a long time and decided to go to the city. It was also a courtesy visit before the Spring Festival. So, after calling Professor Tian, he picked up some vegetables from the space, went to the fish pond in the space, and caught a few carps that weighed more than 1.5 kilograms. He then drove the pickup truck straight to Sanshan City. Xia Ruofei, who had been here once before, drove to Professor Tian's house with ease. He easily lifted the 20 to 30 pound vegetable basket in one hand and the koi tied with a straw rope in the other and came to the front of the courtyard. He put down the vegetable basket and rang the doorbell. After a short while, Xia Ruofei heard the sound of hurried footsteps. After the metal door opened, Xia Ruofei saw Tian Hilan's daughter, Lu Yu. After seeing Xia Ruofei, the joy on Lu Yu's face instantly turned into shock. After a while, she furrowed her brows and said, "Why are you here?" Xia Ruofei was even more confused and said, "Who else could it be? I'm here to see Professor Tian." Then, Xia Ruofei also came to his senses. He smiled and said, "You're waiting for someone, right?" Lu Yu's mouth twitched and she rolled her eyes at Xia Ruofei. "What does it have to do with you?" Xia Ruofei thought to himself, "This girl is really hot-tempered. But I don't think I've provoked her, so why does she look so bitter and hateful when she sees me?" At this moment, Professor Tian's voice could be heard from inside. "Is it little Xia? Come in quickly. Yu, what are you doing at the door? Quickly let little Xia in." Lu Yu snorted softly and stepped aside unwillingly. Naturally, Xia Ruofei would not argue with a little girl. He gave her a friendly smile, reached out for the vegetable basket, and walked into the courtyard. The white-haired and spirited Professor Tian smiled as he came out and said, "Little Xia, why did you bring so many things again? Didn't I tell you not to take anything from here the last time? The vegetables we grow and the fish we rear are not worth much." Xia Ruofei smiled and asked anxiously, Professor Tian, how's your health recently? Very good. Professor Tian said happily, after drinking the Chinese medicine you gave me, some of my minor illnesses have disappeared. I feel like I'm 10 years younger. Xia Ruofei saw that Professor Tian was indeed in a good mental state. His face was glowing and he walked with a gust of wind. It did not look like he had just walked past the gates of hell not long ago. He was happy for him. Professor Tian pulled Xia Ruofei to sit at the antique tea table in the corner of the living room. He took out his precious tea leaves and made a kung fu tea for her. As he poured the tea leaves into the purple clay teapot, he said with a smile, Little Xia, stay for lunch today. My younger daughter and son, in-law just came back from Hong Kong. In a while, Hillen will be coming over after work. Xia Ruofei glanced at Lu Yu, who was huddling on the sofa in the living room and switching channels with the remote control in boredom. He roughly knew who she was waiting for. Professor Tian, I won't disturb your family's reunion. Xia Ruofei said. What are you saying? Professor Tian pretended to be angry and said, you came to visit me. How can I let you go without a meal? Besides, my younger daughter also knows about what happened last time. She kept saying that she wanted to thank you in person. Hearing this, Xia Ruofei could only agree with a bitter smile. Professor Tian was in a good mood today, probably because he had not seen his younger daughter for a long time. He was making tea and talking about his younger daughter with Xia Ruofei. Professor Tian's youngest daughter, Tian Weishan, was 35 years old. Her husband, Ma Zhiming, was the only son of Hong Kong's richest man, Ma Xiang. Tian Weishan could be considered to have married into a rich family. However, she and Ma Zhiming were classmates when they were studying in the United States. The two fell in love and got married in the United States. Ma Xiang was getting on in his years. Ma Zhiming had inherited his father's business and was gradually taking control of the family business. Tian Weishan, on the other hand, had not gone out to work since she got pregnant. She had been living a life of supporting her husband and raising her child in Hong Kong all these years. The two of them chatted for a while before the doorbell rang again. Lu Yu cheered and jumped up from the sofa. She jogged out to open the door. Immediately after, Xia Ruofei heard Lu Yu's surprised voice. Little aunt, little uncle, you guys are here. Wan, big sister missed you so much. Come, let big sister hug you. Xia Ruofei and Professor Tian also stood up and walked out. Before they reached the door, Lu Yu and the rest had already entered. A charming young woman was walking in front with a cute little girl who was about 4 or 5 years old in her arms. Behind her was a well-dressed middle-aged man who was about 36 or 37 years old. When the two of them saw Professor Tian, they shouted in unison, Dad. Professor Tian was also a little excited. He nodded and said, Zhiming, Weishan, hurry up and go inside. The journey must have been tough, right? Fortunately, Hong Kong is not far from here. Ma Zhiming replied with a respectful expression. Professor Tian then turned his gaze to the little girl in Tian Weishan's arms. With a loving expression, he said, Wan. Tian Weishan gently patted Huan and said, Call me Grandpa happily. Huan did not react. She did not even look at Professor Tian. Her eyes were dull and listless as she stared at a small top in her hand. Still no improvement. Professor Tian's expression darkened. Tian Weishan's eyes reddened. Ma Zhiming saw that the atmosphere was a little heavy and wanted to change the topic. At this moment, he saw Xia Ruofei standing beside Professor Tian and quickly asked, Dad, this is... Oh. Professor Tian laughed. I forgot to introduce you. Zhiming, Weishan, this is the person who saved my life, little Xia. Xia, this is my daughter Tian Weishan and son, in-law Ma Zhiming. So you're Xia Sheng. Ma Zhiming's attitude became more enthusiastic. He spoke in Mandarin with a strong Hong Kong accent. I heard about what happened last time. Thank you so much. Tian Weishan also showed a grateful expression and said, Thank you, Xia. Xia Ruofei smiled. Mr. Ms. Tian, you don't have to thank me. I've told Professor Tian and Mayor Tian before. It's really nothing. At this time, Professor Tian said, Come in and sit. Don't stand there and chat. The group of people arrived at the living room and took their seats. Huan also got down from Tian Weixin's arms. She tiptoed to the corner of the living room and fiddled with the top. Every time the top started to spin, she would be very focused and stare at it without blinking. Lu Yu ran over and wanted to play with her, but no matter what she said, Wanwan did not even look at Lu Yu. Xia Ruofei also realized that there was something wrong with this little girl. She had not said a word since she entered the room and did not respond to any external stimuli. However, this should be Ma Zhiming and his wife's privacy, so Xia Ruofei did not ask. He could see the deep worry in Ma Zhiming and Tian Weixin's eyes, and he knew that Wanwan's problem was not small. Otherwise, with Ma Zhiming's financial resources, how could he not even be able to solve the problem of his precious daughter? After the spinning top stopped, Huan picked it up clumsily and tried to spin it again. However, she failed after several attempts. Wanwan, I'll help you, Lu Yu said. After saying that, he took the spinning top from Wanwan's hand. Before Lu Yu could spin the top, Huan's head hit Lu Yu's stomach without any warning. Lu Yu was caught off guard and fell on her butt on the floor. She grimaced in pain. Then, Wanwan let out a hysterical scream. Tian Weixin quickly ran over and comforted Wanwan in her arms. Professor Tian went over and helped Lu Yu up. Even in her mother's arms, Wanwan was still screaming loudly. It took a long time before she gradually calmed down. Mr. Xia, I'm sorry to have embarrassed you. Ma Zhiming sighed. When Xia Ruofei saw the tears in Tian Weixin's eyes, he couldn't help but feel sorry for her. He couldn't help but ask, Mr. Ma, if I may ask, Wanwan. Ma Zhiming glanced at his wife and daughter who were not far away and said with a sad face, to be honest, Wanwan is Xingxing's child. Xingxing's child. Xia Ruofei repeated in confusion as he did not understand. Professor Tian sighed and said, it's autism. We call it autism in China. It's a congenital nervous system disease. These children live in their own world. They generally have serious language and social barriers. Grandpa, why are you saying so much? Lu Yu complained in a low voice. Xia is not an outsider, Professor Tian said nonchalantly. What's there to hide? Yes. There's nothing I can't say, Ma Zhiming quickly said. It could be seen that he still respected this father-in-law very much. Xia Ruofei said apologetically, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry into your privacy. It's just that Wanwan is so cute, and her appearance. Tian Weixin hugged Huan and said with a bitter smile, children with autism look the same as ordinary children. In fact, many star children look cuter than ordinary children. Xia Ruofei looked at Huan, who was completely immersed in her own world, and asked, this illness? Is it very troublesome to treat? Tian Weixin sighed. Yes. At present, there is no medicine in the world that can treat autism. What can be done is to help the child master survival and social skills as much as possible through perceptual integration training and some other supplementary correction. However, Wanwan's condition is rather serious. Even though we've hired a top-notch special mentor, she still can't speak. At this point, Tian Weixin was a little choked up. She gently kissed Wanwan's pink and jade-like face and said with red eyes, my greatest wish is to hear Wanwan call me, mother, in person while I'm still alive. Even if it's just once, I'm fine with that. After saying this, Tian Weixin couldn't help but sob. Wanwan, on the other hand, was completely unaware of her mother's sadness. She was still staring at the little top in her hand, and her head would shake from time to time, which was a sign of a serious imbalance in her senses. Ma Zhiming walked over and gently put his arm around his wife's shoulder, comforting her in a low voice. Lu Yu glared at Xia Ruofei unhappily and said, how can you be like this? Why are you asking so many questions? You made my aunt cry. You, how can you say that? Professor Tian frowned and shouted. It is. Lu Yu said indignantly, Wanwan's matter is a sore spot for Auntie. Our family members won't take the initiative to mention it, but he keeps asking this and that. Isn't he rubbing salt in Auntie's wound? You should stop talking. Professor Tian glared at Lu Yu and said. You, it's all right. Ma Zhiming quickly said. Xia Sheng only asked because he was concerned about Wanwan. Seeing that everyone in the family was speaking up for Xia Ruofei, Lu Yu snorted and sat on the sofa in a fit of pique. She was so angry that she stopped talking. Tian Weixin wiped her tears and said to Xia Ruofei, Mr. Xia, I'm sorry to have embarrassed myself. Xia Ruofei also said awkwardly, Mrs. Tian, I really don't mean to pry into your privacy. Actually, the reason why I want to know more is because I've learned a few ancient prescriptions, one of which is quite effective for nervous system diseases. So, I want to confirm the specific conditions of autism and see if I can help you. Tian Weishin only smiled faintly and said, Mr. Xia, I appreciate your kindness. We can't even remember how many famous neurologists we've taken Wanwan to over the past few years. We've also seen many Chinese medicine doctors, but... Hearing this, Professor Tian coughed a few times. Tian Weishin suddenly realized that her words were a little inappropriate, so she said a little awkwardly, Mr. Xia, don't misunderstand. I don't mean to doubt you. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, it's fine. Actually, I'm not confident myself. After all, that prescription has not been tested on an autistic patient. Naturally, Xia Ruofei did not have any ancient methods. He only felt a little sympathy for Wanwan when he saw that she was such a cute little girl, but she was living in her own world and did not care about the reactions of the outside world. Since it was a problem with the development of the nervous system, he felt that the petals of the strange flower might be helpful to her condition, so he took the initiative to mention it. If Tian Weishin had no intention of asking him to treat her, he would naturally not rush to do this. Professor Tian was moved by Xia Ruofei's words and quickly asked, Xia, did the same person teach you the ancient prescription that you mentioned and the one that treated my illness and rejuvenated my body last time? Xia Ruofei smiled. Faintly. Yes, it's all recorded in an incomplete medical book that the old Chinese doctor left me. But I've never tried to treat people with autism. After Professor Tian received the confirmation, he said excitedly, then it's worth a try. After saying that, he turned to Tian Weishin and Ma Jiming and said, Weishin, Jiming, little Xia's prescription is very magical. The last time I had a heart attack, it was very dangerous, and it was Xia's Chinese medicine that saved my life. The doctor said that if I didn't take the right medicine in the early stages, I wouldn't have made it to the hospital. He paused for a moment before continuing. In addition, the Chinese medicine that Xia prescribed for me is also very effective. My legs that have been suffering from cold for decades have been completely cured. Tian Weishin and Ma Jiming looked at each other. Both of them were moved by Professor Tian's words. However, Tian Weishin had just declined Xia Ruofei's good intentions, so she was a little embarrassed to speak again. Xia Ruofei looked at the couple and smiled. Mr. Mrs. Tian, I'm very willing to try to help Wanwan. The side effects of Chinese medicine are very small. Even if there is no effect, the child will be fine. Ma Jiming finally made up his mind and said, Mr. Xia, I'll trouble you to treat my daughter. No matter if it's effective or not, we'll still thank you properly. Lu Yu, who was sulking, couldn't help but stand up and say, Little uncle, are you serious? Do you really believe that he can cure autism? Look at his age, does he look like he has great medical skills? He also said that he has no experience in treating people with autism. Yu, shut up. Professor Tian's face darkened as he rebuked. This is getting more and more outrageous. Xia has good intentions, and he's my savior. How can you be so rude? Grandpa. Lu Yujiao said, we have to believe in science. Can science cure your grandfather's acute myocardial infarction? Could science have recuperated my body so well in such a short time? Science itself is a kind of superstition. Professor Tian said bluntly, China's traditional Chinese medicine is broad and profound. Who would dare to pat their chest and say that traditional Chinese medicine can't cure autism? Seeing this, Lu Yu shook her head helplessly. In her opinion, her grandfather must have been bewitched by Xia Ruofei to believe him so unconditionally. Professor Tian glared at Lu Yu again before turning to Xia Ruofei and saying, Xia, it's all my fault for not teaching you well. That's why she's so arrogant. Please don't take it to heart. Xia Ruofei laughed and said, She's actually doing this for Wanwan's own good. Everyone's starting point is the same. Lu Yu pouted. It was obvious that this girl did not appreciate Xia Ruofei's kindness. However, Xia Ruofei did not mind. He just smiled and said, then I'll go to the pharmacy to get all the herbs I need, and then come back to boil the medicine. Okay. I'll leave it to you, Xia. Tian Weishin said quickly. Xia Ruofei nodded with a smile and walked out of the door. At this moment, Lu Yu also quickly followed. Yu, what are you doing? Professor Tian shouted. Wanwan. Lu Yu said without turning her head, I bought the medicine for Wanwan. I have to follow him. Let's see if he's up to any tricks. Nonsense, aren't you coming back? Professor Tian was furious. Xia Ruofei, however, did not seem to mind. He turned around and said, Professor Tian, it's fine. Since Lu Yu wants to follow, then let her follow. This. Professor Tian shook his head helplessly. He could not help but glare at Lu Yu. Xia Ruofei said to Lu Yu, then let's go. I'll try to get there as soon as possible. Lu Yu snorted softly and ignored Xia Ruofei. She followed Xia Ruofei out of the door. Soon, there was the sound of an engine. Xia Ruofei drove the pickup truck with the secretary's daughter, Lu Yu, and headed to the nearest Chinese medicine clinic. The pickup truck drove through the campus. The two people in the car did not speak, and the atmosphere was very strange. Xia Ruofei glanced at Lu Yu from the corner of his eye. She sat in the front passenger seat, the seat belt wrapped around her chest, outlining her seductive curves. The lines of her face were very delicate. The winter sun shone through the car window, and her face seemed to be covered with a faint glow. However, Xia Ruofei did not feel the pressing aura of youth. Instead, he felt that the temperature in the car had dropped because of Lu Yu's presence. No matter how good looking a face was, it would not be pleasant if it was sullen. This girl's resentment towards him was a little deep. What exactly did he do to make her unhappy? Xia Ruofei's heart was filled with question marks. When the car passed by the civil engineering school's main building, Xia Ruofei stepped on the brakes and stopped the car by the side of the road. Then, he opened the door and got out of the car. He walked straight into the building. Lu Yu didn't react for a moment. It was only after Xia Ruofei got out of the car that she quickly stuck her head out and shouted, Hey! Where are you going? Xia Ruofei said without turning his head, I have 3 urgent needs. I'm going in to use the bathroom. Do you want to join us? Lu Yu's face heated up. She spat and said, Bah! Vulgar. She saw that Xia Ruofei had already walked into the school building with a anxious look on his face. She couldn't help but kick the mat of the front passenger seat and thought, what kind of person is this? Why did he go to the bathroom at this time instead of at home? Is he up to no good? Lu Yu had the intention to go in and see what Xia Ruofei was up to. However, she was shy after all. If Xia Ruofei really went to the toilet, wouldn't she be in big trouble? So in the end, he didn't put it into practice and could only sulk in the front passenger seat. The waiting time always passed very slowly. After a few minutes, Xia Ruofei still had not appeared. Lu Yu gritted her teeth in hatred. Just when she thought that Xia Ruofei had fallen into the toilet, Xia Ruofei finally appeared at the entrance of the teaching building. When Lu Yu saw Xia Ruofei walking over unhurriedly, she was furious. She couldn't help but stick her head out and mock, You've been gone for a long time. Don't tell me you cleaned the toilet for the civil engineering college. Xia Ruofei had a harmless smile on his face. He opened the car door and sat in the driver's seat. I'm sorry. I caught a cold yesterday and had a stomach ache. Sorry for making you wait. Lu Yu snorted with a cold face and ignored Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei chuckled and didn't think much of it. He started the car and drove out of the school. Naturally, he didn't really go to the toilet just now. He just went to find a quiet place in the teaching building to summon the spirit map scroll and took out a small, flat, stainless steel wine pot from his space. It was filled with a solution of flower petals that Xia Ruofei had prepared in advance. The amount of petals in the solution was about 1/3 of the total. Then, he used his mobile phone to search for some Chinese medicine formulas for nursing children with autism. He firmly remembered one of the formulas that had milder medicinal properties and was mainly for nursing. It took a lot of time to search for the information because Xia Ruofei had to make comparisons to ensure the accuracy and safety of the prescriptions. At the same time, he had to remember the ingredients, the amount, the dosage, and other information. After doing all this, Xia Ruofei deliberately walked out of the teaching building unhurriedly. After wasting so much time, Lu Yu was naturally impatient. Fortunately, on the way to the pharmacy, Xia Ruofei did not cause any more trouble. Otherwise, Lu Yu would really go crazy. There was a pharmacy at the Tongsheng Hall near Sanshan University. Xia Ruofei walked towards the pharmacy after parking the car. Lu Yu naturally followed him quickly. It was obvious that she was monitoring Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei didn't mind and told the shopkeeper a series of herbs, such as foxglove, poryacoccus, mandrill, Chinese magnolias, etc. They were all common Chinese medicinal herbs. He even asked the shopkeeper to separate and pack these herbs. Just as the shop assistant went to prepare the medicinal ingredients, a pleasant voice rang out, "Yu Yu." Lu Yu turned her head and smiled happily. She called out, "Yu Yu. What are you doing here?" The girl named Yu Yu was wearing a short white down jacket and blue jeans. She was tall and slim. She had a standard and exquisite oval face, and a pair of big, watery eyes. Yu Yu blushed and said in a low voice, "My stomach hurts, so I'm here to prescribe some Chinese medicine." This was a girl's problem. She saw that Lu Yu was with a young man and was naturally embarrassed to say it too clearly. After she finished speaking, Yu Yu couldn't help but steal a glance at Xia Ruofei with a red face. It didn't matter if he didn't look, but with one look, Yu Yu's mouth opened slightly. Her face gradually showed a surprised expression as she stared at Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei couldn't help but feel uncomfortable being stared at by a beautiful woman. Lu Yu was even more confused. Just as she was about to ask about the situation, Yu Yu had already walked directly to Xia Ruofei. "Big brother," she cried out in surprise. "I've finally found you." Xia Ruofei was shocked. What was going on? Could it be that I have a long-lost sister outside? Xia Ruofei's expression fell into Yu Yu's eyes. She asked, "Big brother, don't you remember me?" Lu Yu looked at Xia Ruofei and asked Yu Yu with a slight frown, "Yu Yu, what happened? Did this guy deceive your feelings? Don't be afraid, tell me, I'll help you teach him a lesson." "Hey, Lu Yu, don't spout nonsense." Xia Ruofei quickly said, "I don't even know this lady." Yu Yu also blushed and said, "Yu Yu, how can you be so rude?" She then looked at Xia Ruofei with her big eyes and said, "Big brother, you really don't remember. More than 2 months ago, in the shanty town next to the sentience square." Xia Ruofei suddenly realized what was going on and said, "Hey. It's you. If you didn't remind me, I really wouldn't have remembered. By the way, is your leg alright?" It turned out that this Yu Yu was the girl that Xia Ruofei had saved in the alley of the shanty town. It was also because of that injury that Xia Ruoxin had flown back to the rented house to look for a first aid kit. The blood from her wound had dripped onto the spirit map scroll, and it had accidentally opened the spirit map space. Yu Yu said happily, "Big brother, you finally remembered. My foot is fine. Thank you for that day." Lu Yu said with a puzzled expression, "What are you two talking about?" Yu Yu happily grabbed Lu Yu's hand and said, "Yu Yu, didn't I tell you about the time I met a few hooligans in the shanty town next to the Three Mountains Square? It was this big brother who helped me beat the hooligan away. In order to save me, he even cut his arm with a dagger." "No way. Is there really such a coincidence? Are you sure you didn't get the wrong person?" Lu Yu asked in disbelief. Yu Yu looked at Lu Yu unhappily and said, "Yu Yu, do you really think I'm a child? How can you make a mistake?" Then, Yu Yu looked at Xia Ruofei and asked, "Big brother, what happened to the injury on your arm? Are you alright?" Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "I've recovered a long time ago. By the way, you don't have to call me big brother. Let me introduce myself, I'm Xia Ruofei." Big brother Xia," Yu Yu said happily, "my name is Zhang Yu. I'm Yu Yu's best friend and roommate in university. By the way, you guys. We're not close." Xia Ruofei and Lu Yu said in unison. Zhang Yu looked at the tacit understanding between the two of them and a smile appeared in her eyes. Lu Yu immediately shouted, "Yu Yu, what's with that expression? I'm really not familiar with him at all, don't think too much." Following that, Lu Yu pulled Zhang Yu over and whispered into her ear, "Also. Even if he did save you, don't try to repay him with your body. I don't think this guy is a good person at all. Be careful not to suffer losses." Zhang Yu's face immediately turned red and she said in embarrassment, "Yu Yu, what are you talking about? What body? I'm going to scratch you if you say anything else." Although the two of them spoke softly, Xia Ruofei had absorbed so many petals of the strange flower that his hearing was far beyond ordinary people. He heard every word of their conversation and felt very embarrassed. Fortunately, the shop assistant had prepared all the medicinal herbs that Xia Ruofei needed and packed them according to Xia Ruofei's request. Xia Ruofei hurried over to pay and bought a dozen vacuum-sealed bags that were used to store the brewed Chinese medicine. "Zhang Yu," he said to Zhang Yu, "I have something urgent to attend to. I'll be leaving now." After saying that, he carried the wrapped Chinese medicinal herbs and said to Lu Yu, "Let's go." "Where are we going?" Lu Yu asked subconsciously. Xia Ruofei laughed. "I've already bought the medicine. Of course, I'm going back." "Ah. Oh." Lu Yu was stunned for a moment before she said. The entire process of buying the medicine was very simple. It seemed to be a little different from what Lu Yu had imagined. Xia Ruofei didn't hide anything. He told her what herbs he needed and left immediately after he bought them. It could be said that other than meeting Zhang Yu by chance, there was nothing abnormal about her. At this moment, Xia Ruofei was almost at the entrance of the store. Lu Yu did not have the time to think too much. She informed Zhang Yu and hurriedly chased after her. Zhang Yu also chased after him and asked, "Brother Xia, when are you free? I wanted to treat you to a meal to express my gratitude." Xia Ruofei placed the herbs on the back seat of the pickup truck and opened the door to the driver's seat. He then turned to Zhang Yu and smiled. "Last time was just a small matter, you don't have to thank me." At this moment, Lu Yu had already gotten into the car. Xia Ruofei started the car and waved at Zhang Yu with a smile before stepping on the accelerator and driving away from the entrance of the pharmacy. Zhang Yu shouted from behind, "Hey! Brother Xia, please give me your number." However, before she could finish her sentence, the car had already driven away. Zhang Yu finally managed to find Xia Ruofei, but he ran away without even giving her his number. Naturally, she was in a bad mood. However, she quickly put on a bright smile and muttered to herself, "At least I know your name. Besides, you must know your phone number. I'll ask her for it later." Zhang Yu looked at the pickup truck that was driving further and further away and smiled. She then turned around and went back to the pharmacy to buy some medicine. In the pickup truck, Xia Ruofei was driving without any distractions. However, when Lu Yu turned to look at him for the third time, he finally could not help but ask, "Miss Lu, I don't think there are any flowers on my face, right? Or have you finally discovered my handsome side?" Lu Yu snorted and said in disdain, "Tisk. You're daydreaming. I just wanted to see how different the soldier Yu has been talking about for 2 months is." Then, Lu Yu said suspiciously, "I say. Don't tell me you're lusting after Yu's beauty and deliberately found someone to put on a show of a hero saving a beauty." Xia Ruofei couldn't help but roll his eyes. He couldn't even be bothered to explain such a stupid question. This girl was really full of malice towards him. He didn't know if it was because of the conflicting 8 characters, but he didn't seem to have provoked her at all. Xia Ruofei criticized in his mind. Seeing that Xia Ruofei was ignoring her, Lu Yu lost interest in talking. The two of them returned to Professor Tian's building in silence. In the living room, Wanwan was still playing alone. Sometimes she would make some meaningless sounds, and sometimes she would suddenly stand up and walk around in circles on tiptoes. Seeing Xia Ruofei and Lu Yu enter, Professor Tian and the rest stood up to welcome them. Xia Ruofei took the initiative to show everyone the Chinese medicine packet in his hand. He smiled and said, "The medicine has been bought. I'll go brew the medicine now." "Xia Sheng, I'll have to trouble you," Ma Zhiming said gratefully. Whether Xia Ruofei's medicine would be effective or not, at least he had good intentions. Ma Zhiming and his wife were grateful to Xia Ruofei from the bottom of their hearts. As for the effects of the medicine, the two of them really didn't have much hope. With their family's financial resources, what famous doctor couldn't they hire? However, autism was a difficult medical problem in the world, and there was no way to completely cure it. "Professor Tian, I need a clay pot," Xia Ruofei said to Professor Tian. "There's one in the kitchen, follow me," Professor Tian said. Xia Ruofei followed Professor Tian to the kitchen. When they reached the door, he turned around and said to Lu Yu, who was trying to follow him, "Miss Lu, the process of brewing the medicine is very important. There can't be any interference, so." After he finished speaking, Xia Ruofei shrugged and looked at Lu Yu. Before Lu Yu could say anything, Professor Tian frowned and said, Yu, go to the living room and play with Wanwan. Xiao Xia's prescription is so precious, of course it has to be kept a secret. What are you doing following us in?" Lu Yu could only roll her eyes at Xia Ruofei. Then, she pouted and left the kitchen. Professor Tian found a clay pot for Xia Ruofei and told him how to use the gas stove. Then, he left the kitchen. Xia Ruofei put the herbs into the clay pot, added water, and then boiled the medicine on the gas stove. Before Xia Ruofei joined the military, he had brewed Chinese medicine for his grandfather when he was sick, so he was no stranger to it. The brewing process of Chinese medicine was a very boring waiting process. All they needed to do was to watch over the whole process and control the fire from time to time. During this process, Professor Tian and the others were very tactful and did not disturb Xia Ruofei in the kitchen. Xia Ruofei had mixed about 10 doses of medicine. After it was done, he poured the Chinese medicine into a ceramic soup pot. Then, he took out the small stainless steel wine pot and poured 1/3 of the solution of the petals of the strange flower into the medicinal soup. He stirred it well. The next step was to wait for the medicinal soup to cool down. It would take a long time to cool down such a big pot of medicinal soup, but Xia Ruofei had a way. He directly summoned the spirit map scroll from his body and then put the porcelain pot filled with medicinal soup into the spirit map space. After waiting in the kitchen for about 2 minutes, Xia Ruofei took out the ceramic soup pot again. As expected, after more than 40 minutes of cooling in the medium, the medicinal soup had already dropped to a temperature that was edible. Xia Ruofei first filled a small ceramic bowl with food. Then, he took out the vacuum-packed bag he had bought in the pharmacy, divided the medicinal liquid into 9 parts, sealed them, and put them in the refrigerator for storage. Then, he walked out of the kitchen with the bowl of medicinal soup. Xia Ruofei walked into the living room with the medicinal soup and saw Tian Hilin in a business suit talking to Tian Weishan and her husband. He went up and greeted, "Secretary Tian." Tian Hilin's official appointment had been made. She was now a member of the Southeast Provincial Party Committee and the secretary of the Sanshan Municipal Party Committee. This appointment would naturally be on the Southeast news. Everyone in Sanshan City knew about it, and Xia Ruofei was naturally aware of it. In fact, Wu Liqian had already taken up a position in Changping County. She even gave Xia Ruofei a call and told him that if he needed anything in Changping County in the future, he could call her on his personal phone. This was a clear sign of goodwill. Tian Hilin smiled gently and said, "Little Xia, I heard from Weishan that you went to brew Chinese medicine for Wanwan. Thank you for your hard work." "You're welcome. I'm not confident in this prescription either." Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "But I really hope that I can help Wanwan. She's such a cute child. It'll be a pity if she's always like this." Tian Hilin sighed and nodded in agreement. Xia Ruofei said, "By the way, the Chinese medicine is ready. Let Wanwan drink it once. I've made a total of 10 portions, and the other 9 have been stored in the refrigerator. You can just feed them 3 times a day. If this medicine is right, you should be able to see the effect in 3 days." "Okay, thank you, little Xia," Tian Weishan replied. Meanwhile, Lu Yu, who was playing with Wanwan, secretly pouted. It was obvious that she didn't agree with Xia Ruofei's claim that it would take effect in 3 days. Chinese medicine itself took a longer time to take effect, and the treatment of autism had always been a long and drawn-out battle. The so-called effect in 3 days was basically a fantasy. In fact, even Tian Weishan, Tian Hilin, and Ma Zhiming did not have high hopes for it. However, out of courtesy, they would not voice their doubts. After all, Xia Ruofei had good intentions. Professor Tian was the only one who was looking forward to Xia Ruofei's medicine. He said eagerly, "Weishan, quickly feed the medicine to Wanwan." Tian Weishan replied. Then, she took the bowl of medicine from Xia Ruofei's hands, walked to Wanwan, and squatted down. She said gently, "Wanwan, drink this medicine and you'll be better." Huan turned a deaf ear to him and did not look at Tian Weishan. Tian Weishan could only force a smile and bring the bowl of medicine closer to Huan. However, when Huan smelled the Chinese medicine, she immediately smacked the bowl in disgust. Fortunately, Tian Weishan was already very familiar with Huan's various actions, so she withdrew her hand in time and the medicinal soup did not spill out. She shook her head helplessly, then looked at her husband and said, "Zhiming, we can only force her to drink." Ma Zhiming nodded with a bitter smile. He walked over and hugged Huan. Unlike other children, Huan didn't enjoy her parents' hugs very much. She seemed to be very repulsed, constantly struggling in Ma Zhiming's arms. Mr. M.A., Ms. Tian, why don't you let me try? Xia Ruofei couldn't help but ask. Even my little aunt and uncle can't do anything about it, how can you make Wanwan take the medicine obediently? Lu Yu couldn't help but mock when she heard this. Xiao Xia, Wanwan, she's a little out of control, Tian Weishan said, feeling troubled. Besides, she can't understand what the adults are saying. I'm afraid. Xia Ruofei smiled gently and said, I'll try. If it really doesn't work, you can pour the medicine down. Tian Weishan thought for a moment, then nodded and said, all right, I'll have to trouble you then. Xia Ruofei took the bowl of soup from Tian Weishan's hands and squatted down in front of Wanwan. He said with a pleasant expression, Wanwan. Although Huan raised her head to look at Xia Ruofei, her eyes were still very distant. She did not look at Xia Ruofei and quickly lowered her head to play with her spinning top. Xia Ruofei noticed that Wanwan seemed to like rotating objects very much. When he was searching for the prescription for autism, he also saw that many children with autism had this characteristic. He took out a coin from his pocket and flicked it gently. The coin immediately began to spin quickly on the ground. Sure enough, Wanwan's eyes fell on the coin and she reached out her small hand to grab it. Xia Ruofei picked up the coin before she could. Without a second thought, Huan snatched the coin from Xia Ruofei's hand. Xia Ruofei flipped his hand and opened his palm. The coin had disappeared. In fact, Xia Ruofei had quickly caught the coin between his fingers. As long as Huan flipped her hand over Xia Ruofei's palm, she would see it. However, Xia Ruofei's actions were so fast that not only Wanwan, but even the adults present could not see the mystery behind it. Huan looked confused. Xia Ruofei flipped his hand and opened his palm. The coin appeared in his palm again. A pure smile appeared on Wanwan's face. She seemed to be amused by this interesting little magic trick. She reached out her little hand to take the coin. Xia Ruofei shook his hand and said, Wanwan, drink the medicine. I'll make the coin appear for you, okay? He said. Huan blinked her eyes. She did not understand what Xia Ruofei was saying. Xia Ruofei pointed at the bowl of medicine and said, you'll get coins if you drink the medicine. After he finished speaking, Xia Ruofei opened and closed his right hand again. The coin appeared and disappeared in a flash. Huan was so amused that she could not help but giggle. The couple, Ma Zhiming and Tian Weishan, were dumbfounded. It was the first time they had seen someone who could make their daughter so happy. A professional correction teacher might have some special methods to make Wanwan follow the instructions, but they would not be able to attract Wanwan's attention so quickly. Lu Yu's face was full of disdain at first, but now, her eyes slowly widened and she revealed a look of disbelief. Wanwan finally looked at the bowl of medicine. Xia Ruofei used his right hand to perform magic, and brought the bowl closer to Wanwan's mouth. Surprisingly, Huan did not refuse. She took a small sip and frowned. The Chinese medicine tasted a little bitter, but after mixing it with the petal solution, the bitter taste was reduced a lot. It did not seem to be unacceptable. Hence, Xia Ruofei mustered up his courage and used this simple magic trick to tease Wanwan while feeding her half a bowl of medicinal soup. The living room was very quiet. It was only after Huan had finished drinking all the medicine that Tian Weishan came over with a look of surprise and took the empty bowl. She said, Little Xia, you're really good at this. Xia Sheng, Ma Zhiming also said happily, if it weren't for the fact that you knew nothing about autism, I would have thought that you were a professional special teaching teacher. Actually, I'm just giving it a try. Maybe Wanwan and I hit it off. Xia Ruofei said humbly. As if to confirm Xia Ruofei's words, Huan, who had just taken her medicine, immediately pounced over and forcefully pried on Xia Ruofei's fingers, trying to find the coin. Her pink little face kept rubbing against Xia Ruofei's body as if Xia Ruofei had a natural affinity that made her want to get close to him. This scene made everyone burst into laughter, and Tian Weishan's eyes were clearly still filled with tears. As a mother of an autistic child, her journey had been too difficult. Every little improvement in Wanwan could make Tian Weishan cry with joy. Although they had just taken the medicine once, and the effects were still unknown, Tian Weishan and Ma Zhiming still felt a glimmer of hope for some reason. Huan Huan kept pestering Xia Ruofei, and Xia Ruofei liked this little girl who was as fair as a porcelain doll. He sat on the living room floor and played with her. Xia Ruofei's prescription was to calm the nerves. With the help of the flower petal solution, Wanwan quickly became sleepy and fell asleep on Xia Ruofei's lap. Xia Ruofei carefully picked up Wanwan and passed her to Tian Weishan. He said softly, "It's probably the effect of Chinese medicine. Let her sleep first. After she wakes up, feed her something and then take the medicine." "Thank you, little Xia," Tian Weishan said sincerely. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, "You're welcome. Take Wanwan to the bedroom." Tian Weishan carefully took Huan Huan and carried her to the bedroom upstairs. Xia Ruofei tidied up his clothes and walked to the sofa in the living room. Lu Yu, who was standing at the side, looked at Xia Ruofei with a complicated expression. This man, who had left a bad impression on her from the start, had become a little unpredictable in her eyes. After settling Huan Huan in the bedroom, Tian Weishan went downstairs to prepare lunch with Tian Hilan. Meanwhile, Ma Zhiming accompanied Professor Tian as he made tea and chatted with Xia Ruofei. Lu Yu didn't stay in the living room either. She went to the kitchen to chat with her youngest aunt, Tian Weishan, who she hadn't seen in a long time, and then ran upstairs to see Wanwan. Very quickly, the Tian sisters had prepared lunch. Huan Huan was still sleeping, so everyone went to the dining room to eat. This was the second time that Xia Ruofei had the privilege of being personally cooked by the secretary. He was much calmer than the first time. During lunch, Professor Tian and Ma Zhiming frequently toasted Xia Ruofei, especially Professor Tian. His daughter and son, in-law had returned from Hong Kong, and his granddaughter's autism had always been stone cold, so he was especially happy to see a glimmer of hope. There were very few things that soldiers could not drink. Xia Ruofei had been in the army for a few years. From being drunk from a bottle of beer when he first joined the army, he could drink 2 caddies of white wine by the time he retired. Therefore, he did not reject anyone. Among the 3 men, he drank the most, but he was the most sober. Even the Tian sisters, Tian Hilan and Tian Weishan, gave Xia Ruofei a toast. Naturally, everyone was full of praise for the peach garden vegetables that Xia Ruofei had brought, especially the taste of the carp. Even a young master from a wealthy family like Ma Zhiming could not help but praise it. Although Lu Yu was eating quietly, it was rare that she did not glare at Xia Ruofei and go head-to-head with him. There were a few times when she couldn't help but secretly look at Xia Ruofei. However, when Xia Ruofei looked over, she quickly looked away. After the meal, Xia Ruofei chatted with Professor Tian and the others for a while and told them about the precautions for taking the rest of the herbal soup. He thought that the family had finally reunited after a long time and it would be inappropriate to disturb them. He got up and was ready to leave. At this moment, footsteps could be heard coming from the stairs. Everyone looked up. It turned out that little Wanwan had already woken up and had gotten up to go downstairs. Tian Weishan quickly stood up and went over to welcome her. However, before she could hug Wanwan, Wanwan nimbly twisted under her arms and ran directly to Xia Ruofei. Her big, watery eyes sized Xia Ruofei up with curiosity and shyness. Xia Ruofei's heart skipped a beat. He could clearly feel that Wanwan's eyes were different from that in the morning. There seemed to be a hint of liveliness in them. Xia Ruofei knew that the petal solution was probably working. He was secretly happy. It seemed that his guess was right. Although autism showed social and language barriers, it was still a problem with the development of the nervous system. As long as it was a physical problem, the petal solution had almost no flaws. It had been tried and tested. Xia Ruofei's face revealed a kind smile as he squatted down and looked at Wanwan. Sure enough, although Wanwan subconsciously avoided his gaze, she still maintained eye contact with him for a second or two. Tian Weishan and the others also walked over. Tian Weishan, in particular, was very sensitive to this scene. She couldn't help but cover her mouth with her hands, her eyes filled with tears. Xia Ruofei gently held little Wanwan's cute little hand and said with a smile, "Wanwan, call me uncle." Huan Huan hesitated for a moment. Xia Ruofei looked at her encouragingly and said, "Call me uncle." Huan Huan slowly opened her mouth and said with some difficulty, "Phew. Phew." Tian Weishan suddenly burst into tears, and even Ma Zhiming's eyes couldn't help but turn red. Huan was almost 5 years old, but this was the first time she had truly spoken since she was born. Although she could speak before, it was all meaningless syllables. This time, although his pronunciation was still unclear, it was very obvious that he was responding to Xia Ruofei's request and was trying hard to say the word, uncle. The fire of hope was burning in the hearts of Ma Jiming and his wife. Such an obvious improvement was like crossing a huge threshold. The two of them understood Wanwan's situation the best. They were sure that Xia Ruofei's Chinese medicine had a decisive effect. Although it sounded like a fantasy that a single dose of medicine had such an effect, the two of them believed it without a doubt. Xia Ruofei gave Wanwan a thumbs up and encouraged her, "Wanwan, you're awesome." Then, Xia Ruofei held Huan's shoulders and turned her to Tian Weishan. He pointed at Tian Weishan and said to Wanwan, call mommy. Tian Weishan gently bit her lower lip and looked at her daughter very nervously. She felt that her heart was about to jump out of her chest. What made her feel gratified was that Wanwan's eyes met with hers, and there was an obvious sense of intimacy. The next moment, Wanwan finally opened her mouth, "Mom. Mom." Tian Weishan's tears rolled down her face as she hugged Huan tightly in her arms. Her body trembled uncontrollably as she sobbed, "My good daughter. Mommy has been waiting for this day." Ma Jiming couldn't help but go forward and hug his wife and daughter. His eyes were also filled with tears. Only Huan still had a confused expression on her face. She didn't understand why her parents were so excited. Tian Hilan's eyes were also wet. She gently wiped her tears and said to Xia Ruofei, Xia, thank you so much. Xia, you've helped our family so much, thank you. Professor Tian said excitedly. Lu Yu looked at Xia Ruofei, and a strange light flashed in her eyes. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She walked over and consoled little Aunt in a soft voice. Xia Ruofei waited for them to calm down before he said, Mr. Ms. Tian, it seems that my prescription is right. I believe that Wanwan's condition should be greatly improved after the treatment. However, she still has to start learning the language from the beginning. She's only 4 years old now, so it shouldn't be too late. I know. Tian Weishan said excitedly. The doctor said that if the problem with the nervous system can be solved, the problem of social disorder will naturally not exist, and the ability to speak can also be restored very quickly. The language barrier of people with autism was mainly due to problems with their nervous system, resulting in a lack of learning and understanding ability in this area. Once the root of the problem with the nervous system was solved, they only needed to learn to speak like normal children, which was not a very difficult thing to do. Ma Jiming was also very excited. Xia Sheng, you're really a divine doctor. You've saved Wanwan's fate and also saved our family. Thank you, Mr. Ma, you're welcome. Xia Ruofei smiled. Whether my prescription is effective or not, we'll only know after the entire course of treatment. It'll definitely be effective. Ma Jiming said, I've only taken 1 dose of the medicine, and the effect is immediate. If I take 10 doses of medicine in a row, the effect will definitely be more obvious. Xia Ruofei nodded and said, I hope so too. Wanwan is so cute. She should have a happy childhood like a normal child and not be immersed in her own lonely world. By the way, Mr. Ma, please keep my treatment of Wanwan a secret. Xia Ruofei said, firstly, the medicine has not been tested. Secondly, I'm not qualified to practice medicine. Besides, I like peace and quiet. If word gets out that a bunch of patients are coming to my door, I really don't know how to deal with them. Okay. Don't worry, we won't tell anyone. Ma Jiming answered. Now, whatever Xia Ruofei said was treated as a golden rule. Naturally, he would not go against it. Okay, then I'll take my leave first. Xia Ruofei said, you can call me anytime to let me know about Wanwan's situation. If the effect is good, I'll prepare the medicine for the 2nd course of treatment. After 3 courses, it should be almost done. 3 courses of treatment were basically the amount of a whole petal of the wondrous flower. Unless it was a particularly serious illness, it would definitely be cured. Just as Fang Yang was about to walk out of the door, Lu Yu suddenly called out to him, Xia Ruofei, wait a minute. You. Professor Tian frowned and called out. He subconsciously felt that Lu Yu was about to cause trouble again. From the start, Yu seemed to be on bad terms with Xia Ruofei. No matter how she looked at Xia Ruofei, she did not like him. Xia Ruofei turned around and looked at Yu. He smiled and asked, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" Yu bit her lower lip gently. After a while, she finally said, "I was prejudiced against you before and my attitude wasn't very good. I apologize." Xia Ruofei was a little surprised, but he quickly came back to his senses. He smiled and said, "It's okay, I didn't take it to heart." When Yu saw Xia Ruofei's smile, she felt that Xia Ruofei didn't seem to care. She couldn't help but grit her teeth. However, she didn't show it and continued, Can you stay for the afternoon? Wanwan likes to hang out with you, and she'll have to take her medicine again later. If you're there, we'll know what's going on. Don't worry, the Chinese medicine is not dangerous." Xia Ruofei smiled. "I didn't mean it that way, don't misunderstand." Yu quickly said, "I just want you to stay for half a day more to accompany Wanwan. This will be good for her recovery." Yu looked at Xia Ruofei and tried her best to make her facial expression gentler. However, she was already gnashing her teeth in hatred. "This stinky fellow, I've already lowered myself to beg you, yet you're still trying to make things difficult for me. You're really annoying." Yu was truly concerned about her cousin Wanwan. She had always been at odds with Xia Ruofei, and she had almost lowered her voice just now. Xia Ruofei saw the anticipation in Tian Weixin's and Ma Jiming's eyes. He couldn't help but secretly sigh. He looked at Professor Tian and asked with a smile, "Professor Tian, will this disturb your family reunion?" "Xiao Xia, we're so happy that you're willing to stay and accompany Wanwan." Professor Tian said quickly. Yes. Xia Sheng, Wanwan is very close to you. Please stay and accompany her." Ma Jiming also said quickly. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and nodded. "All right then. I don't have anything to do today, so I'll go back in the evening." Yu's gaze was a little complicated, but she still said softly, "Thank you." "You're welcome," Xia Ruofei said calmly. "I also like little Wanwan and hope that she can recover as soon as possible." Xia Ruofei returned to the living room and knelt down in front of Wanwan. He said gently, "Wanwan, let me show you another magic trick, okay?" Huan now understood that it was difficult for her master to speak. After thinking about it seriously, she revealed an extremely innocent smile and nodded heavily. Soon, Xia Ruofei was playing with Wanwan. She would giggle from time to time and was like a different person from before. Tian Weixin brought over Wanwan's lunch. Just as she was about to feed her, Xia Ruofei quietly stopped Tian Weixin and tried to encourage Wanwan to eat by herself. To his surprise, Wanwan really started to pick up a small spoon and eat by herself. Although her movements were still a little clumsy and her fine control of her hands had some problems, causing her to spill a lot of rice and soup, this was still a very gratifying improvement. Huan rested for a while after her meal. Xia Ruofei heated up the second dose of Chinese medicine and brought it over. This time, it was even smoother than the last time. She finished half a bowl of medicine in a few mouthfuls and then pestered Xia Ruofei to play games. It was the first time that Ma Jiming and Tian Weixin had seen their daughter so clingy. They had been sick for a long time, so they knew a lot about autism. They naturally knew what a happy change this was, and they were both very excited. Little Wanwan was tired again after playing for a while. This time, she fell asleep on the floor. Tian Weixin carefully carried Wanwan upstairs to rest. After such a long time, Xia Ruofei's lunch was almost over, and Wanwan had already gone to bed, so he took his leave at the right time. Professor Tian's family, including Tian Hilin and Yu, all stood up to send Xia Ruofei to the door. Ma Jiming even held Xia Ruofei's hand and said many words of thanks. As she watched Xia Ruofei drive away in the pickup truck, Tian Weixin could not suppress the excitement in her heart. She had never dared to think that a normal trip home would bring them a ray of hope in their despair. "Jiming, no matter how much Wanwan recovers this time, we must thank little Xia," Tian Weixin said to her husband. Ma Jiming nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, the consultation fee for Xia Sheng must not be low." Tian Hilin laughed. "Jiming, I can tell that Xiao Xia really loves Wanwan. He's definitely not treating Wanwan for the money." "Big sister, we know about this," Ma Jiming said, "but from our point of view, we still have to express our feelings." Professor Tien knew that his son-in-law had a net worth of tens of billions. Money was nothing to him. Thus, he smiled and said, "It's fine to pay the consultation fee, it's natural to spend money to see a doctor. Besides, Xiao Sha's prescription is so precious." Previously, Professor Tien trusted Xia Ruofei unconditionally. Some people did not think so. But now, no one thought so anymore. Wanwan's change today made everyone not dare to underestimate Xia Ruofei's medical skills. By the way, Jiming, little Xia is starting her own business now. She should be developing in the planting and breeding industry in the future. Don't you also have a few Michelin star restaurants in Hong Kong? Professor Tien continued. In the future, you can also help Xiao Xia in her career. Of course, of course. Ma Jiming quickly replied after hearing that. Rich people naturally cared about their health the most. Xia Ruofei had first pulled Professor Tien back from the brink of death due to acute myocardial infarction. This time, he even had a solution to the world's difficult medical problem of autism. His medical skills had already been recognized by Ma Jiming from the bottom of his heart. If he could be on good terms with someone like Xia Ruofei by helping out in the business, Ma Jiming would be more than happy to do so. Naturally, Xia Ruofei did not know about the discussion between Ma Jiming and the others. After he left Sanshan University, he drove straight to the holiday villa in the suburbs. Soon, the car went out of the urban area and turned into National Highway 306. Just then, Xia Ruofei's phone rang. He was wearing a pair of jeans today, and his phone was in his pocket. He was in a driving position, so his pants were a little tight. Xia Ruofei held the steering wheel with one hand and lifted his butt slightly. He took out his phone from his pocket with the other. This position was a little awkward. At this moment, Xia Ruofei suddenly saw a black shadow rush out from the side of the car. Even though he had excellent reflexes, he only had time to step on the brakes and subconsciously turn left to avoid it. However, Xia Ruofei could clearly feel that the front right side of the car had hit something. His heart skipped a beat as he realized that he might have hit someone. Xia Ruofei quickly got out of the car to check and saw a black dog lying by the wheel, wailing. One of its front legs was obviously twisted, and there was a lot of blood coming out of its head. It seemed to be seriously injured. At first, Xia Ruofei felt relieved. Fortunately, he did not bump into anyone. But at the same time, he was a little worried. The dog was dirty and scarred. It was obvious that it was a stray dog. Although it was the dog that suddenly ran out from the side of the road and hit his car, the dog was so seriously injured now. If he ran away, it would probably die. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and felt that it was a life after all. He would not be able to live without it. So, he walked over and squatted down to carefully examine the dog's injury. The black dog saw Xia Ruofei coming over and showed a vigilant look. It struggled and bared its teeth at Xia Ruofei. Unfortunately, it was too seriously injured. As soon as it opened its mouth, blood foam flowed out. It did not look threatening at all. "Don't be afraid. I'm here to save you," Xia Ruofei said gently. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and gently stroked the black dog's back. Perhaps it felt Xia Ruofei's kindness. The hostility in the black dog's eyes gradually faded. Its body curled up slightly and kept trembling. It was obvious that it did not have long to live. Xia Ruofei quickly summoned the spirit painting and took out a bottle of flower petal solution. Now, Xia Ruofei would always keep a few bottles of petal solution in his storage space in case of emergency. One of the petals was mixed into the spatial spirit pond water and was split into 3 bottles. Xia Ruofei pried open the black dog's mouth and poured in a quarter of the petal solution. The black dog's body suddenly trembled, and it seemed to be much more energetic than before. The color in its eyes gradually disappeared, and it slowly returned. Xia Ruofei was already used to this. He took out a first aid kit from the space and treated the black dog's wound with great familiarity. After the black dog drank the petal solution, it no longer had any wariness towards Xia Ruofei. Instead, it showed some intimacy and allowed Xia Ruofei to treat its injuries. After cleaning and disinfecting the small wounds, Xia Ruofei took out a splints from the first aid kit and said to the black dog, "It might hurt a little, bear with it." The black dog naturally did not understand what he was saying, but it revealed a very human, like confused expression. Xia Ruofei smiled and reached out to feel the black dog's broken leg. Then, he used force to fix the broken bone. The black dog whined in pain, but it seemed to know that Xia Ruofei was helping it, so other than the pain, it did not have any other extreme reaction. Xia Ruofei skillfully used a splint to fix the broken leg of the black dog. Then, he poured some flower petal solution on the broken leg. The black dog immediately felt a cooling sensation and the pain was greatly reduced. It could not help but let out a comfortable cry and used its nose to rub against Xia Ruofei's hand, acting very affectionately. Xia Ruofei thought, the spiritual qi in the spirit map space is rich, so it should be very beneficial for the black dog's recovery. He gently picked up the black dog and sent it into the spirit map space with a thought. At the same time, Xia Ruofei used his mind to check the situation in the space. The black dog seemed to be a little stunned by the sudden change in its surroundings, and it looked around nervously. However, the environment in the interspace was far better than the outside world. Very soon, the black dog was no longer nervous. It laid on the ground in a very comfortable position with its eyes slightly closed, as if it had fallen asleep. Only then did Xia Ruofei put the painting away in his body. Just as he was about to get into the car, the phone in his pocket rang again. He had bumped into the black dog just to answer this call. After that, he had been busy treating the black dog, so his phone rang for a while before it stopped. He didn't expect the person who called him to be so persistent. After a while, he called again. Xia Ruofei took out his phone and saw that it was his classmate of 6 years, Guanping. Guanping was a real estate agent. Previously, Xia Ruofei was in a hurry to sell the house to treat Huzi's mother's illness. Through Guanping, he managed to sell the house in a very short time. Ling Qingshe had also found the address of the group rental apartment that Xia Ruofei had rented at. That time through Guanping. Xia Ruofei picked up the phone and asked, "Guanping, what's up? Why didn't you pick up the phone?" Guanping said teasingly, "Don't tell me you're having fun with the campus bell, Ling." "What are you saying? What campus bell, Ling?" Xia Ruofei said guiltily. "Acting. Are you still pretending?" Guanping laughed out loud. "Ling Qingshe, the campus bell, even took the initiative to ask me for your address. It's really hard for a girl to woo a guy. Guanping, if you have something to say, say it. Why are you always talking about Ling Qingshe?" Xia Ruofei said, "Don't tell me you're interested in her." "Of course I'm interesting. She's rich and has long legs, who wouldn't like her?" Guanping laughed, "It's a pity that he's only interested in you. As a brother, I can only wash my face with tears to fulfill your wish." "Nonsense." Xia Ruofei laughed and scolded him. "Are you okay or not? I'm hanging up if there's nothing else. I still have to drive. Don, T, Don, T, Don, T, there's something. Guanping quickly asked, "Are you free tomorrow night? Yuan Lily is going to get engaged, and she wants to invite our classmates for a gathering before the engagement. This year is exactly 10 years after she graduated from junior high school." Yuan Lily. An image of a young girl appeared in Xia Ruofei's mind. She's getting engaged. Time really flies. Yuan Lily was Xia Ruofei and Guanping's junior high school classmate. At that time, she was the kind of person who didn't show off. However, if she could take the initiative to invite them to a class reunion, she must have been doing well. Many things could happen in 10 years. It's not that fast for a girl to get engaged at the age of 24. Guanping teased, "You're almost done talking with the campus belle, so you can get engaged. Don't hold him up." Seeing that Guanping was talking about Ling Qingshe again, Xia Ruofei quickly changed the topic and asked, "Are there many students attending tomorrow night?" Xia Ruofei joined the army after graduating from high school. He had almost no contact with his middle school classmates, and he could not even remember their names. At most 10 or 20. Many of them have gone abroad, and some are working in other places. Guanping said, "I've been hanging out in Sanshan and I've been in contact with my classmates the most. So, Yuan Lily asked me to do my best to help out with the arrangements." Sanshan City was a famous hometown for overseas immigrants. Almost every family had relatives overseas, and many people went overseas to work or study. Then, Xia Ruofei hesitated. He had almost cut off all contact with his middle school classmates, and they must have been very unfamiliar with each other after not seeing each other for 10 years. In fact, such a gathering was actually quite boring. "Ruofei, You should participate. I don't have much to talk about with my classmates who are doing well, so just take it as being my companion. Guan Ping advised. That's right, little Fatty has also confirmed that he will be participating. Fatty's name was Peng Hao. When they were in middle school, he and Guan Ping were Xia Ruofei's closest classmates. Xia Ruofei thought for a while and said, "All right then. Send me the time and place on WeChat later. Pick me up at my company tomorrow at 6. Guan Ping laughed. "I'll hitch a ride from you." "No problem." Xia Ruofei agreed readily. After hanging up the phone, Xia Ruofei continued to drive back to the holiday villa. He went straight upstairs to his bedroom and took out the spirit map scroll from his palm. He wanted to go in and see how the injured black dog had recovered. Calculating the time, a few hours should have passed in the space. Xia Ruofei estimated that the black dog's injuries should have recovered by now. Sure enough, when he entered the medium, he found that the black dog was no longer dejected. The small wounds on its body had already formed scabs, and only the fracture of its front leg had not recovered so quickly. At this time, it was limping in front of the space fish pond, and in front of it was the pair of red arowana. Xia Ruofei broke out in a cold sweat. He was afraid that the red arowana would be frightened or hurt, so he quickly shouted and ran over. When the black dog heard Xia Ruofei's voice, it immediately limped towards him and wagged its tail at Xia Ruofei. Its eyes were filled with affection. Xia Ruofei took a closer look and realized that the black dog was indeed much more energetic. The most obvious change was that its fur had become glossy and smooth, and it no longer looked like it was in dire straits. Xia Ruofei did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the black dog's eyes were especially lively, as if they had a trace of intelligence. The black dog ran to Xia Ruofei's side and stuck out its tongue to lick Xia Ruofei's feet. It kept wagging its tail at Xia Ruofei. Xia Ruofei couldn't help but laugh. "Are you hungry?" He was just asking casually, but the black dog's tail wagged even more happily. It even barked twice, as if it was answering Xia Ruofei's question. "Hey, you can understand what I'm saying." Xia Ruofei was curious. "If you're hungry, you can wag your tail. If you're not, you can wag your tail." Xia Ruofei was just making a passing remark. He did not expect the black dog, who was wagging its tail, to stop immediately. It wagged its tail and then stopped again. It looked at Xia Ruofei with eager eyes. "You can really understand." Xia Ruofei found it unbelievable. Everyone knew that dogs could communicate with humans, but Xia Ruofei had never heard of dogs being able to communicate with humans to this extent. He felt that it might be a coincidence, so he did a few more tests and found that as long as the problem was slightly simpler, the black dog would be able to respond correctly. It could indeed understand what he said. Seeing that Xia Ruofei was enjoying it, the black dog couldn't help but whine a few times in grievance. Xia Ruofei finally reacted and laughed. I know. I'll get you something to eat right away. Just wait." With that, Xia Ruofei ran to the side of the pond and used the net to catch 2 grass carps. His control of the spirit map space had far exceeded what it used to be. He could even control the animals in the space to a certain extent with his mind, so catching fish was rather easy for him. Xia Ruofei threw the grass carp on the ground. The grass carp was still jumping around in panic. The black dog had already pounced on it to tease it. It had been drooling at the fish in the pond just now, but it was too far to help. Xia Ruofei realized that even though the black dog was still a little crippled, its speed was already very fast. It was like a gust of wind when it dashed out. For an ordinary dog to be able to understand human nature, Xia Ruofei knew that it was most likely the magical effect of the petals of the strange flower and the spirit map space. In the beginning, Xia Ruofei was worried that the fish bones would get stuck in the black dog's mouth. He did not expect the dog to be so smart. The big fish bones were removed when it was eating, and the small one swallowed it directly. In a short while, the 2 fish were finished. The fish produced in the realm was delicious. The black dog was still not satisfied and kept barking at Xia Ruofei. "What a greedy dog." Xia Ruofei laughed and scolded. However, there were a lot of fish in the boundless space and they could reproduce by themselves. Xia Ruofei could not finish all of them, so he did not feel bad for a few fish. He ran over and caught 2 more and threw them to the black dog. After the 2 fish were finished, the black dog laid down beside Xia Ruofei's feet in satisfaction. Xia Ruofei knelt down and gently stroked the black dog's glossy fur. The black dog seemed to be enjoying it and squinted its eyes. It's fate that I met you today. You'll follow me from now on. Xia Ruofei smiled and said, but I have to give you a name first. What should I call you? Wang Kai. Big Black. The black dog lifted its eyelids and smacked its lips a few times, as if it was disdainful of Xia Ruofei's naming sense. It does seem a little uncouth. Xia Ruofei scratched his head awkwardly. After a moment of silence, he said, I see that you're so fast. Why don't we call you Lightning? Isn't that a cool name? The black dog opened its eyes and wagged its tail at Xia Ruofei, barking. Xia Ruofei knew that this meant that he agreed, so he smiled and said, all right then. I'll call you Lightning from now on. I didn't expect you to be such a prideful guy. It's not enough if the name isn't flashy enough. Lightning shook its head with a blank look on its face. It was obvious that the sentence was too complicated for it to understand with its intelligence. However, its limited spirituality still made it very dependent and intimate with Xia Ruofei. After Xia Ruofei and Lightning played for a while in the interspace, they prepared to go out and prepare dinner. Before he left, he had given it some thought. It was definitely not possible to let Lightning stay in the space. The time flow here was 20 times faster than the outside world. Staying here would be equivalent to quickly consuming Lightning's life. However, Lightning's injuries had not fully healed yet, so it was naturally the most suitable time to stay in the space. Hence, Xia Ruofei thought for a while and said to Lightning, Lightning, stay here for a while, but there are some places you must not go, understand? Xia Ruofei then led Lightning around the space, pointing out the vegetable fields, fish ponds, and golden nanmu trees to it. He especially emphasized the small fish pond where the red arowana was, the spiritual pond in the space, and the unnamed plant that produced the exotic flower. Next, Xia Ruofei fished out more than 10 fish from the medium and used the spiritual pond water to grow them in the big wooden barrel used to soak seeds. He told Lightning to eat the fish if it was hungry. Xia Ruofei then left the spirit map space. Before he left, Xia Ruofei fed Lightning a few mouthfuls of the petal solution and applied some on its injured leg. However, Xia Ruofei was still a little worried. When he was outside, he continued to pay attention to the situation in the space. He realized that Lightning was very obedient. Although it was wandering in the space, it would not go near the few, restricted areas that he had pointed out. After observing for a while, Xia Ruofei finally felt at ease. Xia Ruofei went to the kitchen to prepare dinner and took a shower. He then surfed the internet in his room for a while. He estimated that a few days had passed in the interspace before he summoned the spirit painting and used his mind to check the situation inside the painting. Sure enough, Lightning seemed to have fully recovered. It was running around happily in the space, and there were only 1 or 2 space grass carp left in the wooden bucket. The vegetable field, the spiritual pool, the fish pond, and the nameless plant were all intact. Obviously, Lightning was following his instructions strictly. With a thought, Xia Ruofei moved the Lightning out of the spirit map space. Lightning was a little confused by the sudden change in its surroundings. The air outside was much worse than the air in the space, which made it unhappy. However, when it saw Xia Ruofei, it immediately pounced on him in surprise. It wagged its tail around Xia Ruofei, trying to please him. Although Xia Ruofei had only been outside for a few hours, it felt like it had not seen its master for a few days. It felt like they had finally met again after a long time. Xia Ruofei stroked its smooth fur and smiled. Lightning, this will be your home from now on. Woof, woof, woof. Lightning called out happily and licked Xia Ruofei's hand affectionately. Xia Ruofei brought Lightning downstairs and turned on the heater in the guest room. He told Lightning to rest in this room for the night and told it to go to the yard to relieve itself. Such a simple order was not difficult for Lightning, who had intelligence, to understand. She could only make do with it tonight. Tomorrow, she would ask the construction team to help build a kennel in the yard, so that Lightning could have her own room. Xia Ruofei played with Lightning for a while before letting it stay in the guest room on the first floor. Then, he went back to his bedroom to rest. The next morning, Xia Ruofei first prepared the vegetables for Shijiangyu Club and Lingji Restaurant. After the purchasing staff from both restaurants transported the vegetables away, he prepared a simple breakfast. The workers at the construction site were almost at work. Xia Ruofei found manager Li and asked him to find 2 carpenters to build a big kennel in the corner of the villa's yard. Lightning was very satisfied with its new home, and wagged its tail at Xia Ruofei. After settling the issue of Lightning's accommodation, Xia Ruofei brought it around the villa again, marking out its sphere of influence. In the future, Lightning would have to shoulder the heavy responsibility of guarding the house. Xia Ruofei checked on the progress of the construction site and went to the backyard to cook the cabbage. Soon, he had a leisurely day. At around 4:00, Xia Ruofei explained to Lightning and drove away from the villa, heading straight for Sanshan City. After picking Guan Ping up from the real estate agency he worked for, Xia Ruofei found out that Yuan Lily had set the meeting place to be at their alma mater, the second high school of Xuanji Sanshan. "What's the situation? How did you run to second middle school to meet up?" Xia Ruofei asked as he drove. Yuan Lily said that she wanted to visit the old place again. "I guess they will be there in a few afternoons." Guan Ping laughed and said, "We're just working adults. We can only gather at this time and then go to the hotel together." "A visit to an old place." Xia Ruofei laughed. "How long has it been since Yuan Lily last came back to the Three Mountains?" "I heard that she went abroad to study and then stayed in the United States to work." Guan Ping said, "This time, I'm going out again after the engagement." "Understood." Xia Ruofei nodded. Sanshan's second high school was not far from Guanping Company. It did not take long for Xia Ruofei to reach the school. Having studied here for so many years, Xia Ruofei was naturally familiar with the terrain here. He quickly found a parking space and parked the car. Then, the two of them strolled towards number 2 middle school. When they arrived at the entrance of number 2 middle school, they saw a group of people walking out of the campus. Surrounded by the crowd was a woman in her late 20s. She was dressed very fashionably and even had light makeup on her face. She was Yuan Lily, who was treating them today. Xia Ruofei could still vaguely remember Yuan Lily's appearance when she was in middle school. In comparison, she had indeed changed a lot. However, her outer appearance was still the same as before. If they met on the street, Xia Ruofei might not be able to recognize her. Seeing the two of them, Yuan Lily showed a smile and said, "Guanping, you guys really came at the right time. The office workers can't help it." Guanping laughed and said, "I didn't delay anything, did I?" "That's true." Yuan Lily smiled and turned to Xia Ruofei. "You're Xia Ruofei, right? You haven't changed much from back then." "Yuan Lily, congratulations," Xia Ruofei said with a smile. "Thank you," Yuan Lily said with a faint smile on her face. At this moment, the other students came forward to greet him. One of the chubby boys punched Xia Ruofei's chest and scolded him jokingly, "Xia Ruofei, I heard that you've been back for 2 to 3 months and you still haven't come to find me. Do you not see me as your brother anymore?" This person was Peng Hao, Xia Ruofei's good friend in junior high school. Xia Ruofei had been in the army for 7 years and had basically cut off all contact with his junior high classmates. After he returned from the army, he had no intention of contacting his classmates at all because of his terminal illness. After he obtained the spirit map space, he focused on his career development. Xia Ruofei hugged Peng Hao and said with a smile, "Little fatty, you're becoming more and more horizontal. I should call you fatty now, right? You, this fellow, are you rubbing it in?" Peng Hao's small eyes widened as he chided with a smile. The other students also came up to greet Xia Ruofei, especially the female students. They looked at Xia Ruofei with sparks in their eyes. These classmates in Sanshan City were more or less in contact with each other. However, Xia Ruofei had joined the army after graduating from high school and there had been no news of him ever since. Hence, he was a little mysterious to his classmates. Furthermore, Xia Ruofei had absorbed a lot of petals from the exotic flowers. His entire aura had changed slightly, and there was a faint sense of affinity. This was one of the main reasons why little Wanwan was willing to get close to Xia Ruofei. In addition, Xia Ruofei's appearance was not bad, so the eyes of the single female students were shining. Suddenly, Xia Ruofei became the focus of everyone's attention. He was not used to it and could only pretend to be polite to the students who had a vague impression of him. At this moment, a voice rang out, "Haha, Ruofei, it's been 10 years since we last met. You're still so popular." Xia Ruofei turned around and saw a male student. He was wearing a suit and his leather shoes were as shiny as his hair. He looked like a groom. However, the fake smile on his face lacked some sincerity. Xia Ruofei quickly tried to recall and then asked with uncertainty, "You are Lu Hang, class monitor Lu. I thought you didn't remember me." "Haha, not bad, not bad. You can still remember," Lu Hang said with a smile. Lu Hang was the class monitor of Xia Ruofei's third year of junior high. At that time, Xia Ruofei was the sports committee member and also a member of the class committee. However, they had never been on good terms. In the third year of junior high, Xia Ruofei often skipped self-study at night to go out and play basketball. Lu Hang had snitched on him a lot. Hence, Xia Ruofei could recall his name after a while. Forget anyone but the class monitor. Xia Ruofei laughed when he saw Lu Hang's confused look. "Haha, Ruofei, I heard that you didn't do well in the college entrance examination that year, so you went straight to the army?" Lu Hang asked. Xia Ruofei smiled faintly. "That's right. I didn't get in. I didn't want to study either. So, I went to the army. Actually, being a soldier isn't bad. It's a good way to train people," Lu Hang said. Then, he immediately changed the topic and deliberately showed a puzzled look. "But as far as I know, there are people who retired from the army for 2 years, 5 years, and 8 years. Why did you come back after 7 years? Did you make any mistakes in the army?"
Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and see you in the next chapter.